If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon. Link is in the description.
Chapter 61, Hero. Finn's assumption was correct. Riesel, familiar with the corrosive acid of the female-like worm monster, recognized the extent of the hindrance and threat it posed to everyone and decided to handle it alone. Therefore, he mustered his mind, converting a significant amount of it into magical energy, further transforming it into the wind. He adjusted Ariel to almost maximum output, creating a tornado-like force, and becoming a streak of light. Charging through, he pushed the massive monster far away from everyone. Boom! With a heavy impact, it slammed onto the ground, shaking the earth beneath. Dust and gravel erupted like intermittent geysers, sweeping towards Riesel, only to be dispersed by the wind enveloping his body. Wrapped in the force of the wind, he ascended into the air, the magic circle beneath his feet rotating as he began chanting once again. However, before he could finish his chant, countless pollen-like light particles suddenly scattered from the dust. Boom, 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 boom. Consecutive explosions erupted in a corner of the 50th floor, causing the fire wave to expand once again. Rumble. The ground shattered, the forest burned to the ground, and the exploding flames and shockwaves engulfed everything, including Riesel. He could only feel a surge of heat, his body bombarded by the chaotic explosions. If not for the protective wind of Ariel, his body, lacking even a single piece of armor, might have turned into ashes instantly. Remure. Riesel endured the onslaught of the explosion, completing the chant for protection magic. A deep green light membrane illuminated from the raging wind, covering his body. His end-end AGI surged, especially the astonishing boost in AGI. With the dual protection of Remure and Ariel, Riesel finally felt shielded from the high temperatures and explosive shocks. At this moment, he increased the output of his mind, boosted the scale of his magic, and let the fierce wind break through the exploding flames, extinguishing the surrounding fires. The female-like worm monster, seemingly enraged by Riesel's actions, climbed to its feet and emitted a high-pitched scream toward the airborne tornado. Riesel, looking down on the grotesque monster, slowly curled his lips. Whoosh! The next moment, he dove downward, transforming into a stream of light that violently shot toward the monster's massive body. The female-like worm monster, seemingly prepared, opened its mouth, and the purple acid turned into a high-pressure water cannon, blasting toward the airborne Riesel. In the next moment, he clashed with the acid in mid-air, creating an intense conflict. Whoosh! After a short while, the raging wind around Riesel's body forcefully separated the acid. He continued his charge, engaging in close combat with it. Puchi! A flash of a sword, slashed through the female-like worm monster's body, causing acid to spray out from its massive body and making it scream. Boom! The robust, flat arm of the monster swept like a whip, hitting Riesel and sending his body flying, crashing into the distant rock wall, shattering it. But almost at the same time as the rock wall shattered, he came again with a fierce wind, colliding with its massive body. Boom! This time, the female-like worm monster was sent flying, falling into a forest, and crushing numerous trees. It screamed in anger. 4 flat arms gathered and then spread, causing countless bursts of pollen-like particles to scatter like confetti, raining down on Riesel immediately. Boom, 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 boom. A grand explosion occurred once again, causing fire and blast waves to rise, hot winds and high temperatures sweeping through as if hellish flames were erupting from the underground, terrifying everyone. However, Riesel didn't even have an ounce of fear. He stood firm, enduring one astonishing explosion after another without flinching, still enveloped in the fierce wind. Like flowing light, he continuously darted around the female-like worm monster's massive body, launching relentless attacks without stopping. Puchi, 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 Puchi. His sword flashed, purple blood sprayed, and wind-powered slashes continuously fell on its massive body mercilessly. One slash after another cut through its flesh, making it wail in pain. Sizzle. The purple liquid, resembling blood, sprayed out, dissolving the entire forest, frequently causing black smoke and a foul smell to rise. Yet, the wind-wrapped Riesel remained indifferent to this and kept using his wind to blow away the acid while slashing at the female-like worm monster's body. Soon, a chorus of chanting voices could be heard. Proud warriors, snipers of the forest. Take up your bows before the advancing plunderers. Answer the call of your brethren and ready your arrows. Tinge them with flame, the lamplight of the forest. Release them, the fire arrows of the fairies. Falling like rain, burn away the savages. Attacking, moving, and chanting, Riesel once again demonstrated superb concurrent chanting, releasing magic learned from his party companion. Fusillade Fall Arika. And thus, a rain of fire descended. Boom, 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 boom. The rain of fire from above hit the female-like worm monster one by one, causing explosions on its body, making it finally scream in agonizing pain. All expedition party members were staring at this scene, collectively shaken. They gazed at the distant battle, at the streak of light that transformed into a flowing light, wrapped in the fierce wind, constantly colliding with the massive female-like worm monster without stopping. Even when thrown by the female-like worm monster's flat arms or bombarded by bursts of explosion, Riesel valiantly charged at it, slashing and chanting magic repeatedly, turning it into a wailing mess. The shock in their hearts at witnessing this scene was beyond imagination. Is this how Riesel fought? Tiona muttered in a daze. The rest fell silent for a long time. Among everyone present, except for Ace and Lefiya, not many had truly witnessed how Riesel truly fought. Even though he had displayed considerable strength throughout the expedition journey, earning recognition and respect from many senior members, that level of combat couldn't compare to the intensity of the current life and death battle. Due to the advice of Finn, Gareth, and Riveria, Riesel maintained a relatively low profile on this expedition. During the floor boss subjugation, Riesel, with his diverse magic and skills, played a crucial role as a rear guard, providing long-range support. In the Foamwar subjugation, while he charged into the monster horde alongside Ace and displayed impressive combat prowess, it was still a coordinated group effort, excellent but limited to that. At least, Lefiya was aware of how restrained Riesel had been throughout this expedition. In normal circumstances, he would have charged ahead alone, confronting monsters in a life-and-death battle without hesitation. During those moments, Riesel was at his strongest. He feared no opponent, the stronger the opponent, the more excited and thrilled he became. He faced any challenge fearlessly, regardless of the difficulties ahead, always charging forward without hesitation. Using magic for long-range attacks from the rear? Coordinating with party members in group battles? While these tactics were safe, they weren't what Riesel truly wanted. It could be said that at this very moment, he showed his true self, his true strength. As a result, the female-like worm monster, which left Finn and other level 6 adventurers helpless and forced the entire expedition party to retreat, found itself in a losing position against the fearless swordsman who fought bravely and relentlessly. Trickster swordsman? That's bullshit. Loki got the alias wrong, didn't she? Gareth exclaimed loudly. Indeed. Riveria sighed. If she witnessed this battle with her own eyes, she wouldn't have given him that alias. Finn smiled slightly, looking at the Familia members around who were staring in awe at the ongoing battle. Take a good look. Finn's voice slowly spread. Watch this battle, watch that youth. I can assure you that he will reach heights even beyond our grasp, becoming the hero that various gods have long awaited. I'm not asking you to catch up to him, but at least, don't get left behind by him. That was what Finn truly believed. Hero. Tiona whispered, watching as Riesel's appearance gradually shone. Well, I'm not surprised. Tioni remarked, casting a glance at Finn beside her, pondering who knows what. That brat. Bet's expression twisted slightly, his tone harsh, but his gaze never wavered from Riesel's figure. Mr. Riesel. Lefiya even clasped her hands in front of her, gazing into Riesel's battle, admiration gradually welling up. The rest, more or less, were also shaken, developing a sense of respect for Riesel. Even Ace, wordlessly gazing intensely into Riesel's figure with her golden eyes, unknowingly harbored emotions that even the girl herself didn't notice, blossoming bit by bit. Bathing in numerous eyes filled with either admiration or infatuation, Riesel, unaware of the thoughts of his fellow Familia members, initiated another charge against the heavily wounded, female-like worm monster. Swish! Riesel unsheathed his sword. It was not Hermit he had been using all this time. Since the beginning of the dungeon expedition, he had never drawn the other sword hanging at his waist. Not because he was reluctant to use it, but because he believed that the first opponent for this sword had to be worthy. Therefore, throughout the dungeon expedition, Riesel had been using Hermit. Until this moment, facing the female-like worm monster, he finally unsheathed this sword. As the feather-light slender sword was gripped, his speed suddenly increased. Tempest. A gust of wind blew, swirling around the sword. Tempest. A violent storm swept across the battlefield. Wielding the first-class equipment, Fool, Riesel appeared like a spiral wind tornado, charging forward while kicking up countless dust. The female-like worm monster finally felt the deadly crisis and screamed hysterically. It started to scatter explosive pollen-like particles and spray acid recklessly. Yet, under the onslaught of the raging wind, none of it reached Riesel's body. Boom! The tornado leaped and crashed heavily into its body. The female-like worm monster let out a miserable howl, purple liquid splattering. Boom! The next moment, the tornado pierced through its body, creating a large hole. Amid the unwilling scream, the female-like worm monster's massive body soon fell and met its demise. Chapter 62, The End of Expedition. In the desolate and uninhabited safe floor, beneath a rocky wall, Loki Familia's expedition party gathered. Some were packing their meager belongings, others were tending to the injured, a few were running back and forth, and some occasionally glanced into the distance, their faces revealing a lingering anxiety. In the direction they frequently glanced at, a massive crater, seemingly struck by a meteor, lay there. The crater emitted black smoke, a foul odor, and some purple liquid dripping and flowing, continuously corroding and dissolving the surroundings, enlarging the crater. This was the aftermath of the explosive demise of the female-like worm monster. When its entire body was pierced, it self-destructed. A significant amount of corrosive acid sprayed from its body, ultimately leaving behind a crater on the 50th floor, resembling a volcanic vent or a meteor crater. Just the thought of that moment sent shivers down everyone's spine. As a result, their grateful and respectful gazes were directed toward a figure in another direction. Riesel sat there, surrounded by numerous Familia's members. "Here, take this, it's water. Here, use this, it's an elixir." "Dumbass, Mr. Riesel isn't injured. No need for an elixir, stamina recovery potion and mind recovery potion are enough." "No, I heard Mr. Riesel has healing power and spirit healing development abilities, so stamina recovery potion and mind recovery potion are completely useless." "Then just drink water." "No, eat something. Please use it, Mr. Riesel." The members of the Familia argued one after another, offering items to Riesel in succession, which he found somewhat overwhelming. "Everyone, you don't have to be so polite. You're all my seniors, there's no need for this, okay?" Riesel helplessly uttered these words. After defeating the female-like worm monster, Riesel, upon returning, received polite and warm treatment from everyone. This made him feel uncomfortable and awkward. He could only lower his posture and gesture to the others. Unexpectedly, the lower his posture, the more enthusiastic their attitude and the more respectful their gazes. "Don't worry about such things, Mr. Riesel. Yet, while seniority is important, strength matters more. You're already the Familia backbone comparable to an executive. It's only natural for us to respect you. Rather, even though we're a senior, being surpassed by you, we should feel embarrassed, no? Yet, don't mind us, and take a good rest. You were on the verge of collapsing when you just got back, you know." The members spoke one after another, completely ignoring Riesel's words and instead praising him even more. This left him unsure of how to react, so he could only cast a pleading glance at some familiar faces. Unfortunately, that didn't change anything, instead, the scene became even more lively. "I think you should just accept your fate, you know." Tioni stood to the side, wearing a smirk that seemed to revel in other people's misfortune as she looked at him. "Who made you perform so well, Riesel?" Tiona bounced over, happily wrapping her arms around his arm. "You were just like a hero a moment ago." "Tomu, Tomu." Lefiya nodded repeatedly, her eyes and expressions surpassing those of the surrounding members. It left no doubt that if it weren't for her somewhat reserved personality, this elf would have come forward to show concern like the rest, probably even more excessive. Even Ace approached, casting a brief glance at his face before speaking. "You should take a good rest for a while, otherwise, you might not be able to move later." As someone with plenty of experience, she was well aware of his current condition. He had overloaded his magic usage, putting a significant strain on his entire body, just like during the last crocodile dragon incident. With the protection of Ariel and Remure, Riesel wasn't injured and didn't need healing. The consumed stamina and mind were being replenished by his healing power and spirit healing, so his condition wasn't as dire as others might think. The only issue was that he had once again unleashed the maximum output of Ariel, bearing a huge burden. Right now, he probably felt aching all over his body, nearly collapsing from exhaustion as others believed. Apart from having a good rest, there was no need for any other solution. Therefore, Ace made that suggestion. I know. Riesel naturally understood his current state and nodded. Just give me 10 minutes, I'll sit for a while. His words earned him the concern of those around him. Do you really not need water? What about food? Don't you want a potion? Should we help with some massage? The genuine concern from everyone made him smile wryly. For a moment, in the corner where Riesel was, various noisy voices rose and fell, never quiet down. For fuck's sake, these morons need to shut the hell up. If any more of those disgusting monsters show up, let's see how they deal with it. Bet stood atop a tree, observing the scene where Riesel was, muttering with a hint of displeasure, then turned his head to stay vigilant all around. Finn, Reveria, and Gareth, who were chatting with each other, were also drawn to the commotion. They glanced over and exchanged a smile. That boy is now the hero of the Familia, hey? Gareth remarked, and whether it was out of irritation or amusement, he shook his head. There's nothing wrong with that. Reveria said calmly, closing one eye. With Riesel's performance, not having this treatment would be strange. Heh, even Aki is getting in on this, that's really something, all right. Finn chuckled and added a comment. Upon closer inspection, the cat girl indeed mingled among the crowd around Riesel, taking the opportunity to hand over a towel to him. However, as he was surrounded by many, he seemed oblivious and appeared somewhat helpless. Anakitty seemed a bit disappointed by this. Her behavior made Raoul, standing nearby, wear a face as if he'd seen a ghost, completely dumbfounded. Gareth, observing this, was surprised. That girl, never thought she'd have such an initiative. That boy really has some talent, eh? As Loki Familia's second-string group's leading figure, Anakitty's past performances were much better than Raoul's. Although Raoul was also favored by the higher UPS in the Familia, this youth had some personality issues. Not only was he not good at dealing with sudden occurrences, but he was sometimes overly timid and scared of trouble, causing quite a bit of concern. Anakitty, on the other hand, was different. Outstanding in every aspect, calm and composed, with exceptional courage, she had always supported the first-class adventurers in the Familia from the rear. Not only did she have considerable fame and popularity within the Familia, but various gods also looked favorably upon her. Due to her calm demeanor, various gods even privately referred to Anakitty as Lady Cat. Anakitty also earned Alcat as her alias, an alias that instantly enamored various gods. She was a high-born cat person with a captivating blend of beauty and an icy yet fiery nature, possessing both looks and elegance. Now, the Lady Cat whom various goddesses envied was making such a behavior. No wonder Gareth was surprised, and no wonder Raoul was dumbfounded. It seems it's not just about strength and personality. Riesel and Ace are also competing in popularity with the opposite sex, phew. Reveria laughed. The more outstanding he is, the less pressure we'll have in the future. That's a good thing, no? Finn remarked and turned his attention back to the main topic, after glancing at Riesel for a moment. Seeing Riesel like that, there shouldn't be any major problems. But what about the other members? At Finn's question, Reveria and Gareth spoke in succession. We've already checked. Although many are injured, and quite a few were affected by that corrosive liquid, luckily, they all received timely treatment, and it's currently not life-threatening. Yet, with a little rest, they should be able to continue moving. Their answers made Finn nod with relief. If that's the case, then let's inform everyone and get ready to return. While Reveria and Gareth understood Finn's decision, they also felt a bit helpless. What a disgrace, we didn't even make it to the 58th floor this time. Gareth sighed. There's no other way when facing something unexpected like this, we'll just have to leave it for next time. Reveria gazed at the corroded crater, speaking as if lost in thought. Where on earth did these monsters come from? We still haven't figured that out. The sudden appearance of new species of monsters caught the expedition party off guard. They're all strengthened species, not just a few, but plenty of them. Gareth said solemnly. Given this situation, there's no guarantee we won't run into them again next time. Then let's be prepared. Finn said calmly. We lagged behind this time, but we can't allow this to happen again. Guhahaha, obviously. Gareth laughed. All three of them were level 6 experts. If it weren't for being unprepared this time and hindered by that corrosive acid, it would be impossible for them to end up as mere spectators and leave everything to their juniors. Not to mention Finn's group, even Bet, Tiona, Tioni, and others were all holding back their frustration. When the order from the captain was given, despite feeling unwilling, everyone could only accept it and start the journey back. About half an hour later, all members of Loki Familia's expedition party arrived at the entrance to the 49th floor, officially beginning the journey back. Riesel, who was at the back, took a last look at the 50th floor. The expedition is over, hey. In his heart, an inexplicable feeling of emotion was growing. For 2 weeks, his first expedition ended with a fierce battle. Not bad. Riesel suddenly smiled, not feeling regret in his heart. Having defeated that female-like worm monster and engaged in a deadly battle with such a creature, he naturally gained a massive amount of high-rank excelia. Going back this time, I should be able to reach level 5, right? With such expectations, Riesel set out on his journey home. The 50th floor soon returned to its state of obscurity, sinking into silence once again. Chapter 63, Anticipation. The return journey at the end of the expedition wasn't something worth praising. At least, for the usual Loki Familia, it was truly like that. As a large Familia capable of battling in the deep floors below the 50th floor, the obstacles encountered on the way back could be considered trivial. In the past, once Loki Familia's expedition party set out on the return journey, there was only one result: smooth sailing. But this time, due to the corrosive acid of the worm monsters destroying their supplies and even dissolving their equipment, the expedition party faced quite a bit of trouble on the way back. Not to mention, just filling their stomachs alone became a problem. With only a handful of emergency rations left, they had to forage in the dungeon for food. Every day, they had to find a safe spot to camp and go out to pick wild fruits and vegetables to stave off hunger. This activity itself took up a considerable amount of time on the return journey. Encountering monsters was no different. With many members unable to fight due to the loss of weapons and armor, some had to go into battle unarmed, resulting in increased risks and time delays. If it weren't for the formidable strength of Loki Familia's members and powerful swordsmen like Riesel and Ace, who could single-handedly take on thousands, the time delays could have been much worse. Thanks to this, the expedition, which usually took around 5 or 6 days to return to the surface smoothly, took nearly 8 days to succeed this time. On this particular day, it happened to be dusk. When Loki Familia's expedition party emerged from Babel, the attention of surrounding adventurers was immediately drawn to them. Wherever they went, they were always the center of attention, a fate that came with being one of the city's strongest familias. However, everyone was too tired to care about the gazes and discussions around them. Yada! Finally back! Tiona shouted loudly, raising both her hands to the sky. Can't you stop being so noisy every time? It's embarrassing. Tioni complained on the side but visibly relaxed. The rest of the expedition party showed more or less the same expressions, even Riesel wasn't an exception. Back, hey! Looking at the sunset on the horizon, Riesel himself felt like it had been a long time since he returned. Although the dungeon had various wonders, they were still underground after all. Unable to see the sky and constantly on guard, fighting monsters every moment, it was fine for a short time, but if it lasted too long, anyone would feel particularly stressed. Not that Riesel felt that way. Once, he survived in the wilderness for several months, so why would he feel stressed after less than a month in the dungeon? However, at that split second of seeing the sky, he couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. Guess I just didn't notice those stressed feelings deep down. Riesel thought quietly. Shows I'm still just a normal human, hey. As he thought like that, a smile formed on his face. All right, time to go home. Meanwhile, the mask of captain that Finn had been wearing on his face all along slipped away, revealing the usual amiable appearance that everyone knew. Everyone immediately started chatting and laughing, simultaneously relaxing the tension that had been gripping their hearts. They walked out of the square in front of Babel in groups, heading toward the street where Twilight Manor was located. Along the way, whether they were adventurers or ordinary citizens, they all paid attention to Loki Familia's expedition party, offering nods of respect. Surely, before long, news of their return from the expedition would spread one by one to the ears of every Familia in Orario. Before long, the gate of Twilight Manor gradually appeared ahead. The Familia members guarding the gate were originally standing there expressionless, with a solemn demeanor. However, their expressions changed when they saw the returning expedition party led by Finn. "It's Captain! Captain is back! The expedition party has returned!" Before long, surprised announcements filled Twilight Manor. "Captain!" The two gatekeepers quickly saluted Finn and the rest. "We're back!" Finn smiled at them. "Open the gate." "Yes." The two gatekeepers immediately opened the gate. "Yahoo! We're back!" Tiona was the first to rush in. "I've already said it's embarrassing. Can't you get it?" Tiona groaned, covering her face at her sister's antics. "It's always freaking noisy when we get back." "What a moron!" Bet grumbled, irritation evident in his tone as he gazed at Tiona's figure. "Miss Ace, we're home." Lefiya simply expressed joy, earning a gentle response from Ace. The expedition party walked into the front yard and arrived at the front of the manor. The remaining members of the Familia were already waiting at this place, offering warm welcomes and inquiries to the expedition party's members. Of course, in this situation, a certain goddess, who had been eagerly waiting, was naturally not absent. "Finally, you guys are back." Inside the manor, a figure swiftly dashed toward the expedition party, to be more accurate, toward the female members of the party. AISSS. Just like the first time Riesel saw the expedition party return to the Familia, Loki recreated the scene and charged straight at Ace. In response, Ace, along with Tioni and the rest of the female members, promptly turned around, avoiding Loki's incoming tackle. However, Lefiya stood in place, dumbfounded and unable to react. As expected, Loki managed to tackle her head-on. "Kya!" Lefiya let out a scream resembling that of a violated maiden, shortly before being pinned to the ground. "Wee-hee-hee, Lefiya, long time no see. Let Mama Loki see if you've grown." "And no, don't." Accompanied by a sly chuckle, the pitiful elf, who fell victim to the goddess's playful antics, let out a desperate cry. "Save me! Mr. Riesel!" Lefiya extended a hand in Riesel's direction, pleading with a bright red face. "All right, quit playing around, Loki." Originally, Riesel had no intention of paying attention to Loki's nasty interests, but seeing Lefiya's eyes brimming with tears made him unable to bear watching his companion being toyed with by this shady goddess. As a result, he extended his hand, grabbing Loki's back collar and lifting her up like a cat. "Io! What are you doing, Riesel? Don't disturb my rare leisure time." Loki struggled and protested. "Do you have the nerve to mess with a 15-year-old girl?" Riesel shot a look at her face. "If you want entertainment, go play with Uncle Gareth. Who wants to touch a short and stout stinky old man?" Loki said without reservation. "Sorry for being a short and stout stinky old man." Gareth's mouth twitched. "Everything okay, Lefiya?" Riesel ignored Loki, tossed her aside, then extended a hand to pull Lefiya up. "Hicks! Almost got touched." Lefiya, both relieved and pitiful, sobbed softly. "I'm sorry, Lefiya." Ace, seeming guilty about avoiding Loki's direct hit that led to Lefiya falling victim to the goddess's evil scheme, apologized. It's okay." Lefiya naturally refused Ace's apology, shaking her head hastily. "Loki, seriously, don't bully Lefiya, okay?" Tiona scolded with hands on her hips. "My goodness, can't you find a different way to welcome us back?" Tioni looked annoyed. Okay, calm down." Loki, like flipping a switch, said, beaming with joy. "It can't be helped, okay? My kids finally returned safely, I'm just too happy." "You?" Reveria sighed. "Since we've rarely returned unharmed, can't you let us save some energy?" Everyone around nodded in agreement. "Enough with this bullshit. We've been in that demon-filled dungeon for so long, and our bodies stink. Get out of the way, I need a bath." Bet stepped forward, kicking Loki several times, clearly in a bad mood. Okay. Geez, kids these days just love rejecting their parents. Is this what they called a rebellious phase?" Loki pretended to sigh, making Bet couldn't help but give her another hard kick, finally making her yelp in pain and give way. Seeing this spectacle, Finn, who had been laughing silently, finally spoke up. Everyone, go line up for a bath. According to tradition, today's a day off, and all the work is pushed to tomorrow. Loki, we'll talk about the report later. The losses this time are serious, and there are some important matters we need to discuss. No worries everyone, go take a bath and rest, okay? Loki exclaimed with a smile. Anyone who wants to find me to update their status can come to the divine room, but not too many, or I won't do it. At their goddess's words, two people had a reaction: Riesel and Ace. Sure, it's always you two itching to update your status. Loki rolled her eyes. Alright, you two go first tonight, and the rest can chime in next time. No one objected to her decision, or rather, some were even looking forward to it. Hey, Riesel, think you can hit level 5 this time? Tiona asked curiously, piquing everyone's interest. Not sure. Riesel was confident but not one to brag, so he kept it vague. Even so, many were anticipating his status update, including Ace, who was the most curious. After all, he was already powerful. If he leveled up to level 5, how much more powerful would he become? For some reason, everyone was eager to know this. Night fell amid bursts of noise. After the returning expedition party had bathed and eaten, most of them went back to their rooms, making Twilight Manor exceptionally quiet. Riesel, having also bathed and eaten, returned to his room before heading to the top floor of the central tower, Loki's divine room. Knock, knock. Loki, are you there? Riesel knocked on the door. Yeah, just come in. Upon hearing Loki's response, he pushed open the door and walked in. Chapter 64, Battle Adept. Loki's room was, as always, a mess. Whether it was the furniture or the various items she had collected, everything was randomly placed and piled up, with no order whatsoever. Meanwhile, the person in question was nonchalantly sitting on a chair, while another one was placed in front of her. Loki grinned at Riesel as he walked in. Looks like you're a step late, hey. Her words caught him off guard for a moment, but he quickly caught on. Has Ace already been here? Riesel asked as he took a seat in front of her. She left not too long ago. Loki shrugged. If you had come a minute earlier, maybe you could have seen how depressed Ace was. Seems like she's not satisfied with her own growth. Riesel furrowed his brow, muttering to himself. Well, it is what it is. Loki tapped the back of the chair with her fingers. That girl puts too much pressure on herself. Don't know when she'll settle down and stop doing things that worry everyone. Her tone sounded indifferent, but he could sense a hint of care from it. You really spoil Ace, hey. Riesel sighed. Isn't it obvious? Loki chuckled. Ace is my treasure, you know. If she died, I probably wouldn't even want to stay down here. I would have chased her soul all the way to heaven to bring her back. Would you really? Riesel didn't buy her words. Though this goddess might not have integrity, her equal affection for everyone in the Familia was evident. Riesel doubted Loki would sacrifice everyone just for Ace alone. When did you start learning to challenge my authority, kiddo? Loki grumbled. Anyway, let's drop that topic, and let's talk about you. She straightened up, focusing her eyes on him. Her eyes, which were squinted before, opened slightly wider. TCH, I heard everything from Finn, you know. Dealing with those strengthened species monsters is a big blow for us, no doubt. But you, kiddo, seem to handle it like a pro. Finn, Gareth, and Reveria couldn't stop singing your praises, even throwing around ideas for a new alias for you. In other words, those three top executives believed Riesel might level up this time. After all, Denatus occurred every 3 months, and adventurers who leveled up during that time would be discussed at the meeting. Those who leveled up could earn the privilege to be mentioned in the next Denatus and possibly receive a new alias bestowed by various gods. Even those with existing aliases could be mentioned again after leveling up, giving them the chance to obtain the privilege to change their aliases. For example, Bet, who once held the alias Fenris, only gained the alias Venargand after another level up. If Riesel succeeded in leveling up this time, he might have the opportunity to change his alias in the next Denatus. Of course, he could choose not to change it. However, judging by the intentions of Loki and the 3 top executives, it seemed like they were all inclined to give him a new alias. However, Loki seemed a bit displeased about it. Is Trickster Swordsman not good enough? I think this alias is pretty cool, you know. On this matter, Riesel chose not to comment. He couldn't see anything good about it anyway. All he could discern from this alias was Loki's quirky taste in labeling him, proudly declaring to the world that he was her possession. Alright, Loki, let's update my status already, okay? Riesel diverted from the topic, turned away from her, and took off his shirt. Yeah, sure Loki said while acting a bit difficult. I just wanna see if you've really grown that much after your first expedition. She picked up a needle, pricked her fingertip, and began working on his back. Before long, his new status was revealed. Riesel Brynhart. Level 4. STR, A847 SSS1277. And, A825 SSS1258. Dex, S969 SSS1363. AGI, S971 SSS1385. Mag, S933 SSS1392. Lightweight, HG. Swordsman, HG. Mage, IH. Ha. You've reached the end of level 4, huh? Why, I'm not surprised. Loki sighed as she looked at Riesel, who was staring at the parchment in his hand. Another SSS rank in all basic abilities, even the development abilities are all ranked up. Your bullshit growth speed, I really don't know when it will start to slow down. If she hadn't already gotten used to it, or rather, become numb to it, she would have jumped up by now. Mainly because Riesel's growth was truly inhuman. There was no issue with the growth of basic abilities, Riesel had always been like that. Every proficiency improvement in basic abilities had been no less than 500. If he accumulated it over time and delayed updating his status, it was impossible for it to be less than 1000. But the growth of his development abilities was truly eye-rolling. Just look at Ace. From the first time she leveled up at 8 years old until now, her first development ability Hunter had been in her hands for 8 years, but it stayed at G rank. It had only progressed 2 ranks from I rank. But Riesel? The first development ability Lightweight had only been owned for about 3 months, and by then, it had already caught up with Ace's 8 years of achievements. Luckily, Ace isn't here, or she would be totally wrecked. Loki sighed inwardly. Riesel ignored Loki, who was shaking her head, and focused on reading his current status. How's my accumulation of high-rank Excelia? Riesel asked. It was the most crucial point, and Loki's answer did not disappoint him. As you expected, it's already maxed out. Loki chuckled. Congrats, you can level up, kiddo. Her answer made Riesel's mouth involuntarily lift up. Sure enough, he could level up and was about to become a level 5 first-class adventurer. It took 7 days to reach level 2. 15 days to reach level 3. 30 days to reach level 4. Now, from when you became level 4, it's exactly been 45 days. Loki, whether laughing or crying, had a face so twisted that it could be used for street performances. Only a month and a half, you've leveled up again. You're a monster among monsters, seriously. She couldn't find any other words to describe Riesel's absurd growth speed. What was even more absurd was that not only was he leveling up fast, but each time before leveling up, all his basic abilities were at SSS, the accumulation of latent basic abilities was ridiculously high. With a few combat development abilities, skills, and magic, his true strength definitely surpassed those at the same level. According to Finn's report, Riesel could already match a level 5 when he was at level 4. What about after reaching level 5? Could he possibly contend with level 6? Loki dared not think further. Okay, Kmen, time for you to level up. The accumulation of basic abilities had reached its limit and potential, and Riesel had no reason to stay at the current level. Loki quickly got to work, and his status was soon reset. Riesel Brynhart. Level 5. STR, I0. And, I0. Dex, I0. AGI, I0. Mag, I0. Lightweight, G. Swordsman, G. Mage, H. Battle Adept, I. From this moment on, Riesel officially became a level 5 first-class adventurer. In just over 3 months, starting as an ordinary mortal with no extraordinary power, he rose to prominence at an astonishing speed that caught the attention of various gods and evolved into the fastest mortal to reach the first-class adventurer status in history. Well. Tomorrow's Orario is gonna get lively again it seems. Loki remarked, relishing in other people's misfortunes. Riesel's mood was not bad either. Level 5 might not be considered top tier in this world, but it certainly made him a significant expert. In the current orario, the highest level adventurer was only level 7, and there was only one of them. Even level 6 had fewer than 10 people. Excluding those fewer than 10 top-tier experts, the strongest among the rest were those at level 5. Therefore, becoming level 5 meant that Riesel had truly entered the ranks of experts, and no one would think of him as just a rookie with astonishing growth speed. With my current strength, I should be able to protect myself even if I return to the main world, right? Riesel pondered silently. However, soon another thing caught his attention. Wait, Battle Adept. Riesel murmured, pondering his new development ability. Soon enough, Loki's voice chimed in at the perfect time. With this level up, you triggered quite a few development abilities, but they're all the same thing you don't need, like healing power, spirit healing, abnormal resistance, and the like. Your skill already has those, and they're even at the highest rank, so there was no reason to choose them before, and there's no reason now. Besides these development abilities, the only one worth learning is this ability. Loki said while pointing toward his new development ability. So, I directly chose it for you this time. What's the effect? Riesel nodded. I don't think I've heard of this development ability before. Don't say you haven't heard of it, I haven't either. It's probably as rare as your lightweight, an ability that only you triggered the learning conditions for. Loki struggled not to look at him like he was a monster. As for the effect, if my hunch is right, this ability might be an advanced version of Hunter. Hunter was a development ability that enhanced one's basic abilities when encountering monsters one had defeated before. Battle Adept, being an advanced version of Hunter, naturally had a similar effect. If nothing goes wrong, having this development ability in the future, when you encounter enemies you've defeated before, your basic abilities will get a boost. Loki spoke while raising a finger. This boost not only surpasses Hunter but might not be limited to just monsters in the dungeon anymore. In short, from now on, no matter what kind of enemy Riesel encountered, as long as they were the same kind of being he once defeated, the effect of Battle Adept would be triggered, boosting his basic abilities. He almost instantly understood the benefits of this development ability. It was not without reason. The triggering conditions for the Battle Adept effect were not individual based. For instance, Hunter triggered its effect based on the type of monster one had defeated. If one had defeated a goblin once, the next time they encountered another goblin, the effect of Hunter was triggered. If one had defeated a killer ant, the next time they encountered another killer ant, the effect of the development ability was similarly triggered. Following this logic, if Battle Adept was an advanced version of Hunter, it meant that as long as Riesel defeated a human, the next time he encountered another human, the effect of this development ability would also be triggered. This was essentially an omnipotent enhancement ability. Chapter 65, Approaching 100 Days. This is really a blessing in disguise. Upon realizing the effects of his newly acquired development ability, Riesel was pleasantly surprised. Every time he defeated an enemy, the next encounter with the same kind of enemy triggered the ability, boosting his basic abilities. This was undeniably an excellent development ability. Originally, Hunter was already a valuable ability, but now having the better version of it, not only did it eliminate the restriction to only monsters, but the enhancement it brought was also greater than that of a Hunter. This was undoubtedly a stroke of luck. It was not without reason. Not everyone could acquire development ability when leveling up. Take Ace, for example. She leveled up from level 4 to level 5 without triggering any development ability. Given such precedents, Riesel didn't believe he would acquire development ability every time he leveled up. As a result, he was mentally prepared for that. Little did he know that not only had he acquired a new development ability, but what he got was also a rare and powerful one, similar to lightweight, with conditions that no one else had ever triggered. The effects were beyond words, truly powerful. If this didn't bring him astonishment, he might incur the wrath of the heavens. Another development ability for combat. Hey? How do you always manage to trigger these power-boosting abilities? Even Loki remarked in amazement. So far, all the development abilities Riesel acquired were combat-oriented abilities that enhanced his power. Lightweight allowed him to boost Dex and AGI by reducing weight and equipment. Swordsman enhanced all basic abilities by simply wielding a sword. Mage amplified the power, effects, and range of magic. Adding Battle Adept, which enhanced all basic abilities when facing an enemy of the same kind as the once defeated enemy, Riesel's development abilities, acquired with each level up, were all combat-oriented. Thanks to this, he could probably defeat opponents with a higher status just by relying on the enhancement from his development abilities alone, not to mention his astonishing accumulated SSS rank latent basic abilities. I can only say, no wonder you awakened a skill like Endless. Maybe you really have a natural knack in this area that others don't. Loki seemed to grasp something. Endless, the skill provided Riesel with 3 highest ranked development abilities: Healing Power, Spirit Healing, and Abnormal Resistance. It even boosted the effects of already obtained development abilities. In essence, this skill greatly boosted various aspects of his development abilities, crucially enhancing his strength. Being able to awaken such a skill was enough to show that he had a natural talent in the development ability aspect compared to others. On second thought, does this kid have any shortcomings compared to others? Loki started to ponder. No need to dwell on his basic abilities, each time, they were all SSS, crushing all adventurers. Development abilities were the same, triggered every level up, repeatedly acquiring valuable and rare development abilities. Not to mention magic, although he only had one magic called Almighty, with this magic alone, he could make all mages bow down in awe. His skill? No need to talk more about it. His 3 skills, one more ridiculous than the other, one more insane than the next. Without them, there was no way her Familia had the current Riesel. His growth and potential on the Falna were off the charts, unmatched throughout history. Even the strongest adventurer from the Freya Familia, Otter, couldn't hold a candle to his growth and potential. Logically, an anomaly like Riesel should have a weakness, likely in combat skills and experience. Even if the hardware quality was top-notch, if the software wasn't up to par, it wouldn't have worked. Yet, Riesel didn't have a weakness even in that regard. He had just sparred a few times with Ace and picked up bits and pieces of her swordsmanship. His combat experience had skyrocketed from repeatedly diving into the dungeon and battling countless monsters. It was just absurd. Was there nothing he wasn't good at? Loki was in doubt. It was precisely at this moment that Riesel, who had been staring at the parchment translating his status, suddenly spoke. I've been with the Familia for 3 months now, right? The sudden question brought Loki back to reality. Yeah, 3 months. Loki nodded and then sighed. More precisely, it's been 97 days. Riesel joined Loki Familia on the first day he arrived in this world, receiving a blessing from Loki. After that, his leveling up times were countable. 7 days to level 2. 15 days to level 3. 30 days to level 4. 45 days to level 5. When they got added up, it was exactly 97 days. So, it had been 97 days since Riesel joined Loki Familia, and it had been 97 days since he arrived in this world. 97 days, hey. Riesel fell silent for a while, then glanced at Loki. I might have to leave for a while. At his statement, Loki raised an eyebrow. Leaving for a while? Loki stared at Riesel. Where? To her question, Riesel's reply was very brief. Back to where I was before I came here. His tone was indifferent. He didn't forget that the time limit for dimensional travel was 1 day in the main world, precisely 100 days in this world. Now, the time limit was approaching, and he had to say a temporary goodbye to this side. Loki stared at Riesel for a long time, then relaxed her shoulders. How long are you going to be away? Loki asked with an uninterested tone, not delving further into the matter. This caught Riesel somewhat off guard. You're not even asking where I'm going. Does it matter? Loki shot a glance at him casually. In our Familia, tons of kids are like you, carrying secrets and the burden of unfathomable mysteries on their shoulders. She had no intention of prying into his privacy, it wasn't important to her. As long as you're my kid. Loki grinned. What you're up to isn't important. What matters is when you'll be back, kiddo. Upon hearing this, Riesel chuckled. It shouldn't be too long, I think. That was the truth. Though he was returning to his main world according to the instructions of the dimensional magic cube, when he finished his dimensional travel, the time ratio between the main world and the target world of dimensional travel would reverse. In other words, the scenario where Riesel spent a day in the main world while 100 days had already passed in the world of Danmachi wouldn't occur. During dimensional travel, the time ratio was based on Riesel himself as the reference point. Therefore, while he was in the world of Danmachi for 100 days, only 1 day would have passed in the main world, and vice versa. This time ratio adjustment remained the same even if he traveled to another world. Even in a world different from his main world, it would still be 100 days passing on his side while only 1 day passed in other worlds. All time ratios worked this way, using Riesel's actual time as the reference to determine time speed. No matter which world he was in, time flowed faster in the world he was in and slower in other worlds. Considering this, Riesel wasn't worried that upon leaving, everything here would have changed drastically when he returned. Based on the time ratio, even if he spent a year in another world, only around 3 to 4 days would have passed in this world. Therefore, Riesel answered Loki's question with ease and calm. Shortest, a few days; longest, around a month. In short, I'll surely come back. Riesel promised. After all, this world was the first place where he made a name for himself and the first place where he felt the warmth of home and family. Even though dimensional travel to the personally selected world required 10 times the energy, Riesel would absolutely find a chance to come back. Typically, accumulating a month's worth of energy was needed for random dimensional travel, so with 10 times the energy, that meant accumulating 10 months. He would endure, even if it took this long. Of course, playing it safe, he still set a maximum deadline of 1 month in this world's time. In terms of the time ratio, after he left this world, if a month passed here, over 8 years would have passed on his side. Over 8 years, yet he still couldn't gather enough energy for dimensional travel to the personally selected world? Impossible. A month, hey. Loki breathed a sigh of relief. Well, that's not too long. Yet. Riesel smiled at Loki. Remember to wait for me to come back before going on another expedition, I'm looking forward to revenge. No worries, every expedition needs a couple of months of preparation anyway. As long as you come back on time, you won't be left behind. Loki said while nodding. When are you planning to set off? In a few days. Riesel thought for a moment. I also won't enter the dungeon during these days. Then spend some good time with your Familia's friends. Loki patted his shoulder. Remember, they're all here waiting for your return, kiddo. Hearing her words, Riesel nodded silently. After leaving the divine room, Riesel descended the steps along the central tower. As he walked, he suddenly came to a halt. There, in front of the steps, by a window next to the passage, a silent girl stood, gazing at the scenery outside. Whoosh! A gentle breeze swept in, tousling the girl's golden long hair, making its silky strands sway and flutter. Ace! Riesel unconsciously called out. It seemed like Ace had just noticed his presence as she turned her head to him after hearing her name being called. Under the moonlit night, the two locked eyes, one on the steps, the other by the window, creating a strangely beautiful scene. The breeze continued to caress them both as they remained bathed in the wind, silent for a long while. Chapter 66, Same Emotion, Same Obsession. In the well-lit Twilight Manor, where lights shone brightly, the place where Riesel and Ace met had little illumination. Moonlight streamed in from the window, casting a glow on both of them. Riesel sighed slightly as he watched Ace, who stood there in silence. At first glance, she seemed no different from usual, still wearing her emotionless demeanor with no expression on her face. However, Riesel, being perceptive, sensed that her mood wasn't great. She was dejected. Her emotions were low. Just like Loki mentioned before, this girl seemed somewhat depressed. Witnessing the girl who had taken care of him since he joined the Familia, not only teaching him her magic and swordsmanship but also often sparring with him, he couldn't just ignore her. What are you doing here? Riesel approached, leaning against the window like Ace, gazing out at the night scenery, and asked. Ace remained silent, only staring into the distance. Hearing no response, Riesel glanced at the piece of parchment she was holding. Wasn't the gains good this time? At his questions, Ace fell into another momentary silence, then handed the parchment to him without speaking. I can see it. Riesel asked while furrowing his brow. Ace nodded, allowing him to take the parchment. On the parchment was her recently updated status. Ace Wallenstein. Level 5. STR, D549 D555. And, D540 D547. Dex, A823 A825. AGI, A821 A822. Mag, A899. Hunter, G. Abnormal resistance, G. Swordsman, I. Upon seeing her status, Riesel probably understood why Ace was feeling so depressed. Not because of anything else, but simply because her gains this time were really bad. An expedition, struggling in the dungeon for over 3 weeks, reaching the deep floors, dealing with countless high-level monsters, yet, her total proficiency only increased by less than 20. Such progress was truly disappointing. At least, for Riesel, who had never experienced proficiency growth below 500, this number was a bit unsettling. Don't worry too much. It's not that you didn't work hard, but your status is almost at its peak. Riesel could only say that. He wasn't deliberately comforting her. In his view, the main reason for Ace's poor growth was because her status had reached its limit. STR and End were not her strong suits, reaching D rank for both was already quite good. Dex and AGI were already at A rank, and pushing them further would lead to the highest S rank. Considering the principle that progress slows down as you approach S rank, the improvement in these two abilities would be minimal was purely normal. Not to mention Mag, it was just a point away from S rank, and it wouldn't be easy to raise it. In summary, Ace's slow growth this time wasn't her fault, it was because she had almost reached the potential limit of level 5. I know. Ace finally spoke, but her voice wasn't as calm as usual, it carried a hint of exhaustion. At this point, I've hit the limit. Even if I slay thousands or tens of thousands of monsters, my basic abilities won't increase much. I can feel it. At this moment, she didn't have much room for growth. Her current status was her limit, there wouldn't be much room for significant development. For over 3 years, she had been stuck at level 5, with a wall called bottleneck blocking her way. It made any significant advancement seem unattainable. Ace realized this and therefore felt lost. And you? Ace turned her gaze towards Riesel. Leveled up. Yet. Riesel met her gaze and nodded. As expected. Ace's eyes became somewhat complex as she whispered. In just 3 months, you caught up to me. This blow, at this moment, was truly powerful for her. But Ace knew it was inevitable. As someone who had watched Riesel rise from the beginning, she was well aware of how fast he grew and how much potential he had. Thinking back to when he was still level 1, forcing her to retreat with a single sword trust, she could roughly sense that this man, so similar to herself, would catch up soon. Now he had, but she couldn't widen the gap, still stuck in place. How should I do it? Ace couldn't help but speak up. What? Riesel raised an eyebrow. She was staring at him intently. How can I get stronger as fast as you? What's your secret? Ever since she saw Riesel's status, Ace had been eager to uncover his secret. She practiced diligently with him, sharing her swordsmanship without reservation, all the while keen on observing him closely, hoping to understand his fast growth of getting stronger. However, all she witnessed was him running extremely fast, constantly moving forward, climbing steadily, rapidly approaching her level at an astonishing speed. Yet, she couldn't discern any specific method or secret. Normally, Ace wouldn't voice such thoughts. But at this moment, overwhelmed by her desire to get stronger, she couldn't contain herself, expressing her yearning openly. This left Riesel momentarily silent. Sorry. Ace suddenly realized what she had said, looking at him apologetically. I asked something that might trouble you. Indeed, answering her question wasn't easy for Riesel. He couldn't just say he did nothing extraordinary, only repeatedly cut down monsters every day to achieve such progress, right? That would sound dismissive. After organizing his thoughts, Riesel spoke up. Actually, I understand your urgency to get stronger. I'm just like you after all, eager to become stronger than anyone else to fulfill my long-cherished wish. Wish? Ace was intrigued. Yet. Riesel said indifferently. I want to break free from anyone's control, escape their control and manipulation, run toward the direction and path I desire, no longer helpless, no longer drifting with the current, no longer being used. This was a feeling only Riesel understood, something Ace couldn't comprehend. However, hearing the word wish, she unknowingly resonated with him. So, you're like me. Ace looked at him with a more complex expression. She had her own wish, a wish that she wanted to fulfill, which explained her eagerness to become stronger. Riesel knew this, even knew the undisclosed wish in her heart. Hence, he could utter such words. It seems we're quite alike in many ways, but that should be the most alike, right? Riesel chuckled lightly, his words echoing in her ears. We're all trying to get stronger to fulfill our long-cherished wishes, so I really get where you're coming from. Riesel said while locking eyes with Ace. Unfortunately, in this regard, I can't offer you any mature advice. After all, I'm still figuring things out myself. I'm just a bit luckier than you, having grabbed a chance to achieve my goals. I'm really sorry. If there were any secrets to his power-up, he would surely share them with Ace. He was more than willing to impart his knowledge to her. But he didn't. His rapid growth was primarily due to the influence of Fool's obsession. This was something he couldn't share with others. Therefore, Riesel was completely incapable of addressing Ace's troubles and questions. The only thing I can probably do is, well, listen to your worries. Riesel chuckled. If there's something you want to talk about, something that's bothering you and you don't know who to tell, just tell me. If this can help you reduce some confusion and lessen your worries, I'm more than willing to be your listener. His words made Ace focus her gaze towards his eyes. Riesel didn't avert his eyes, just continued to lock eyes with her. The eyes of the two didn't share the same color but had the same emotion, the same obsession. Watching those eyes so similar to her own, for some reason, Ace did feel a bit less depressed. Thank you. Ace took a deep breath and expressed his gratitude to Riesel. No problem. Riesel said casually, noticing Ace perk up a bit. Feeling better? Ace nodded, redirecting her gaze out the window. Since there's no room for growth at my current level, let's move on to the next one then. Her golden eyes now seemed more resolute as she declared that. What did her words mean? He wouldn't fail to understand. Level up, hey. Riesel thought inwardly. That was Ace's only way out. Since level 5 had reached its limit and progress seemed impossible, Ace had to find a way to reach level 6. Only by leveling up could she make a significant leap in strength, and her body would become stronger, unlocking new possibilities and potential. If she couldn't achieve that, she wouldn't experience any significant growth in the future. Good luck, then. Riesel stared at her, who had made a determined decision. If there's anything I can help with, just let me know. That was the extent of support he could provide. Thank you. Ace thanked him once again. The two simultaneously looked out the window, silent. Moonlight spilled over them, casting a lingering glow. The conversation between Riesel and Ace happened without anyone knowing. Even the top executives of the Familia, on the first day back from the expedition, were too focused on resting to pay much attention to anything else. The rest of the expedition party members followed suit, one after another, starting their recovery. The 3-week expedition left many feeling physically and mentally exhausted. At times like this, the only remedy was to rest well for everyone to get back to health. It wasn't until the next day that news spread not only within Loki Familia but also throughout Orario. Riesel Brynhart successfully leveled up to level 5. This news created a citywide uproar. Chapter 67, Shocking Announcement. Riesel Brynhart. Affiliation, Loki Familia. Race, Human. Age, 17. Profession, Adventurer. Current floor, 51st floor. Notable achievement, Riesel, an adventurer affiliated with the Loki Familia, embarked on a deep floor expedition with his familiar and actively participated in numerous floor boss battles spanning over a month and a half. Eventually, he officially leveled up to level 5. When this announcement was posted on the bulletin board in the first floor lobby of the guild main building, everyone who saw it had their eyes opened wide. They gathered in front of the bulletin board, double-checking the information and even questioning the guild staff at the counter. The result was always the same. The information was accurate, without a doubt. As a result, the guild exploded. Is this a joke or something? Getting to level 5 in, what, a month and a half? Are you freaking kidding me? Trickster Swordsman has become a first-class adventurer, hey. He was just a normal dude who got blessed 3 months ago, wasn't he? This is fucking bullshit, man. People were clamoring. People were arguing. People were in disbelief. People were jealous. Riesel reaching level 5 and becoming a first-class adventurer caused a stir much greater than any of his previous deeds. Unfortunately, this time, the severity of the situation was completely different from before. In the past, whether reaching level 2, level 3, or even level 4, although shocking and impressive, Riesel had only become a second-class adventurer and a third-class adventurer. In Orario, there were still quite a few adventurers in these classes. Therefore, even though he rapidly rose with a speed that amazed and sparked envy and jealousy, he only became one among the many high-class adventurers. In the eyes of many, while Riesel was undoubtedly worth attention, what difference did it make if he reached level 4? Adventurers at this level were not rare, and they didn't pose a threat to others or their familia. Therefore, various gods might have been interested in this rapidly rising rookie. Adventurers would discuss his feats as a topic more than once, but the appearance of a level 4 adventurer was, for many, just a not so significant and rare event. In Orario, people reached level 4 every now and then. It was nothing extraordinary. Riesel was just one of them, albeit with a significantly faster level up speed, considered talented and full of potential. However, this time was different. Dude, we're talking level 5 here. They're top adventurers in Orario, boasting powerful strength that only a few well-known big familias can have. All in just a month and a half, hey? If it's true, that's wild, you know. What a damn joke. Becoming a level 5 first-class adventurer was not just like becoming an adventurer at any other level. Being at this level not only made anyone one of the top experts in Orario but also put one at the level of leading figures in top familias, even among those well-known and influential familias. Take Hephaestus Familia for example. It was famous in Orario alongside Loki Familia and Freya Familia as the best blacksmith familia of Orario. Tsubaki, the captain of this familia with the alias Cyclops, held the status of level 5 first-class adventurer. Meanwhile, the majority of top familias in Orario, trailing just behind Loki Familia and Freya Familia in both fame and strength, also followed the same pattern. Without exception, the higher UPS of these familias, holding the position of captain, were also level 5 first-class adventurers. It could be said that the reason these familias held a powerful position in Orario was because they had level 5 first-class adventurers. As for level 6 and above, besides Loki Familia and Freya Familia, no other familia in Orario had adventurers at this level. This was why Loki Familia and Freya Familia were considered Orario's strongest familias because only they possessed level 6 adventurers. Apart from these two familias, all the other top familias in Orario, without exception, had their highest combat power limited to level 5. At this moment, Riesel managed to become such a high-level presence in just a short month and a half, even though he was just an ordinary person without a blessing 3 months ago. The commotion caused by this was beyond anything in the past. Thanks to this, news of Riesel's rapid level up spread to the higher UPS of various familias and gods at an astonishing speed. Soon enough, these familia higher UPS and gods were obviously blown away by the news. Lady Freya. In the suite at the top of Babel, Otter once again visited, reporting to the goddess of beauty, who stood by the large French windows. Riesel Brynhart has become level 5. Upon hearing that information, Freya, dressed in a black sheer evening dress, halted her actions of swaying the wine glass in front of the French windows. He has become a first-class adventurer already. Freya spoke in a hushed tone. Yes. Otter solemnly said. It seems goddess Loki went to the guild early in the morning to report the matter. After confirmation from the guild, the news has already been announced. Loki, hey. Freya swayed the wine glass and chuckled lightly. She seems eager to show off in front of us. Alan already knows about this. Otter continued, seemingly unaffected by her teasing. He's not in a good mood and raging in the wilderness, venting his frustration. Phew, let him be. Freya shook her head with a chuckle. That child has always been one to hold a grudge. Last time, he did some hateful things on my orders and ended up getting hurt. Now, the one he fought with has leveled up to level 5, so it's only natural he's in a bad mood. What about Riesel Brynhart? Otter asked with his head down. Loki Familia gained an executive-level combat power. For us, it's not something to be happy about. After all, Freya Familia and Loki Familia were rivals. Suddenly having an additional first-class adventurer in Loki Familia was not advantageous for Freya Familia. Freya, not indifferent to the situation, pointed her slender and fair fingers at her chin before turning to Otter. What do you think? Freya asked Otter. About Riesel Brynhart. Without much hesitation, Otter gave his answer. If you see him as a threat, I am willing to make a move. Implying that if she gave the order, he wouldn't hesitate to eliminate this threat. That won't do. Freya sighed with a smile. Just look at Loki's behavior. That boy is her treasure now. If we casually harm him, our familia might end up in a full-scale war. Such a situation would be avoided deliberately by both sides, and even the guild, as the city manager, would not allow it. In principle, the guild strictly prohibited big familia from engaging in conflicts within Orario because each big familia played a significant role in the city. Business-type familia naturally contributed to the city's economic development, and exploration-type familia provided the strength needed for the guild's various tasks, especially dungeon-related tasks. Furthermore, Loki Familia and Freya Familia, being the strongest, were the mainstays in dungeon exploration and city defense. Therefore, as the city manager, the guild wouldn't silently watch these two big familias clash without intervening. Starting a war, that shouldn't happen. Freya looked at Otter, her expression unchanged. Anyway, I'm asking you like this is not from our familia's perspective but more like wanting to hear your personal opinion. Hearing that, Otter raised his head. Personal opinion? Yes. Freya's lips curled up. Don't need to consider my thoughts. For you, Otter, how is Riesel Brynhart as a person? At her question, Otter fell into silence. Freya, unfazed, just smiled at him and waited. After a while, Otter spoke. I'm looking forward to it. His face remained firm and calm, but in his eyes, there was a newfound fighting intent that hadn't been there before. If he can truly continue to grow, perhaps one day, he could replace Finn as my opponent. How high this evaluation was, anyone hearing Otter's words would understand. No choice. Can't believe Orario's only level 7 would make such an evaluation. Freya's smile on her face deepened. He's worthy of it. The man regarded as the city's ultimate weapon admitted. Well, let's not worry about him for now. Freya took a sip of wine. I also want to see if he can catch up to you. She was curious about Riesel, very curious. A soul as peculiar as his, she had never seen in her entire life. She was eager to know what lay deep within his soul. This curiosity and thirst to explore made her feel both refreshed and amazed. In the past, with her discerning eye, she always gathered souls with extraordinary radiance, being infatuated with heroes possessing such souls. But this kind of feeling, not infatuation, not admiration, but purely curiosity, an itching desire to explore the unknown, something she had never experienced before. Freya's attitude toward Riesel was currently in a state of curiosity and observation. Chapter 68, What's Going On? The same discussion wasn't just happening within Freya Familia. Many Familias received the related news and successively paid attention to Riesel's situation. Even Loki Familia stirred up quite a bit because he truly reached level 5. Mr. Riesel already hitting level 5. His strength has long surpassed that of a first-class adventurer, right? Got ourselves a new executive in the Familia. Our powers skyrocketed big time. Think we can outdo Freya Familia now? Nah, not really. They got a level 7 hanging around. In the corridors of Twilight Manor, members chatted while walking, their tones and expressions filled with excitement. Aw damn it! Got caught up after all. Upon receiving the news, Tiona immediately let out a lament. Don't shout. Instead of screaming about being caught up, think about how not to get surpassed so quickly. Tioni seemed calm about it. TCH. Bet, hearing every member discussing Riesel, scowled and walked away from the manor. Miss Ace. Mr. Riesel reached level 5. Lefiya said excitedly as she ran into Ace in the cafeteria. Ace, who had long been aware of this, had the smallest reaction. There was only a slight ripple in her eyes as if contemplating something. As for the higher UPS of the Familia, they were currently gathered in Finn's office discussing the same topic. Though expected, when something like this really happens, it makes you want to yell, "Hey!" Gareth remarked as he sat with arms crossed on a chair, making it creak under the weight it wasn't supposed to bear. Only a month and a half has passed. Reveria stood next to a desk, holding the guild's report in her hand. She looked at the information about Riesel recorded on it. That skill called Fool's Obsession is really too absurd. I wonder if his growth speed will slow down. Finn took a sip of the drink on the table and chuckled. If it doesn't, maybe soon even we'll be caught up, right? Gahaha. Isn't that a good thing? Gareth laughed. But, that kid still has a long way to go. It shouldn't happen so quickly this time, right? Reveria commented. It's not that easy to reach level 6. Indeed, reaching level 6 was no easy feat. The exploits that could make a level 5 level up were not comparable to those of the earlier levels. At this level, taking risks and achieving significant exploits was a challenging task. If the risk was too low, and the opponent was not strong enough, then accumulating a decent high-rank Excelia was impossible. If the risk was too high, and the opponent too strong, it was equivalent to walking into a death trap. At level 5, facing necessary risks and challenging powerful opponents meant facing considerable danger. The magnitude of the risk and the strength of the opponent were easily understood. One wrong move, failed to achieve the exploit, and one would end up dead, a loss not worth the gain. This was also why there were only a few level 6 adventurers in Orario, and all of them concentrated on Loki Familia and Freya Familia. It was because those who challenged powerful opponents and took sufficient risks either died or did not succeed. Before level 5, adventurers could rely on Familia seniors, teamwork, and parties to easily defeat strong opponents and accumulate enough high-rank Excelia. But once at level 5, even with help from level 6 adventurers, it was not so easy to accumulate enough exploits for leveling up. Looking at Ace, Bet, Tiona, and Tioni, who had been level 5 for quite some time, at least several years, they had participated in countless dungeon expeditions and defeated many powerful monsters. Yet, they still hadn't accumulated enough exploits for leveling up. Loki Familia participated in at least 2 to 3 floor boss battles during each expedition. Udius, classified as level 6, and Balor, classified as level 7, were clearly stronger than Loki Familia's executive, making them capable of providing the necessary high-rank Excelia for exploits. However, despite numerous attempts to defeat them, they still couldn't level up. This demonstrated how difficult it was to reach level 6. If the executives chose to defeat Udius or Balor alone, there was a possibility of achieving a significant exploit and leveling up successfully. However, since they were in a party, the Excelia would be split, making it much harder for them to accumulate enough exploits. Especially when it came to taking down the level 7 floor boss, Balor, the 3 top executives of Loki Familia were the main force. The executives could only assist from the sidelines, with the bulk of Excelia concentrated on the bodies of the 3 top executives, while the other executives received only a meager share. With these factors stacking up, leveling up from level 5 to level 6 proved to be quite challenging. If one wanted to achieve level 6, one had to be willing to risk it all, and there was no other way. One careless move could end up losing their life. With Riesel's growth speed, no matter what, leveling up is definitely easier for him than for others. Finn said with a grin. I don't think this level will be a hurdle for him. With the assistance of a skill like Fool's Obsession accelerating his growth, Riesel's rate of exploit accumulation was undoubtedly faster than others. Because of this, Finn didn't believe Riesel would be stuck at this level like the rest of the executives. I just wonder how much time he'll take. Finn mused. Half a year? Or maybe a year? He couldn't really estimate the next level up time for Riesel, who climbed from level 4 to level 5 in just a month and a half. Goo-ha-ha-ha. Maybe he won't need any time at all. Gareth continued to laugh heartily. I just hope he doesn't go too wild. Riveria added. She hoped Riesel would slow down a bit. Otherwise, it meant he would take on big risks again. As an active level 6, Riveria had the most say in the risks involved in leveling up from level 5 to level 6. She just hoped he would be more restrained, take it slow, and grow steadily. That would be the best scenario. Unfortunately, Riesel seemed anything but restrained. Sooner or later, he was bound to get into some serious trouble. Riveria was a bit worried about that. One ace is already giving us a headache, and now there's another one making things even messy. Ha! Seriously? Riveria sighed. Finn and Gareth exchanged glances at her reaction but remained silent. Dealing with this kind of stuff was Mama Riveria's job. They, 2 big guys, weren't cut out for handling such delicate matters. Anyway, Riveria would find a way to talk to Riesel and maybe keep him in check. That was one less thing for Finn and Gareth to worry about. By the way, we need to handle the aftermath of the expedition today. Finn said while looking at the other 2. We took quite a hit this time, and there wasn't much gain. We need to quickly deal with the loot and come up with a better strategy for the next expedition. Yeah. Gareth nodded. Those little rascals have rested enough, it's time to touch some grass and get things done. We also need to discuss how to deal with those new species of monsters. Riveria added. Getting our current tasks sorted out quickly is a good idea. Upon hearing her words, Finn stood up. Yosh, let's call everyone and gather at the main gate. Riveria and Gareth nodded in agreement. Post-expedition affairs were always the first thing to deal with upon returning from the expedition. The loot brought back from the dungeon, whether it was magic stones or drop items, needed to be exchanged for money to fund the upcoming activities. The worn-out weapons and armor, along with the need to replenish items for the many expedition party members, required maintenance. The operation of the Familia needed funds, and preparations for the next expedition involved purchasing various supplies, all of which required money. Therefore, handling the loot became a top priority after returning from an expedition. During these times, Loki Familia, aside from leaving some members to guard the manor, mobilized almost everyone capable of swiftly processing a large amount of loot in exchange for the needed funds. Even the executives weren't exempt. Last time, Riesel couldn't participate in this matter. He just joined the Familia during the previous expedition, still a rookie at that time, so the loot management task didn't fall on his shoulders. But not this time. Riesel participated in the expedition, successfully leveled up, and became a first-class adventurer just like Ace. As a first-class adventurer in Loki Familia, he was now, just like her, considered an executive and the main force of the Familia. Since he was now an executive and a vital part of the expedition party, it was natural for him to contribute to handling the loot. After receiving the summons, Riesel immediately headed to the main gate. "Hey! Riesel! Over here!" Seeing Riesel coming out, Tiona immediately waved, beckoning him over. However, when he looked closely, Riesel noticed Tiona stood out among the group. The other members, seemingly out of respect for the executives, maintained a somewhat delicate distance. Tiona stood alongside Tioni, surrounded by the rest of the members as if they were rallying behind her. She positioned herself right in the middle, with only Ace and Lefiya by her side. With Tiona's call and wave, all Familia members around instantly turned their attention to Riesel. Honestly, this situation made him a bit uncomfortable. The respectful and admiring looks from the members toward him gave him an itchy feeling on his spine. Come over here already." A clueless Amazoness was still yelling over there, clearly not planning to let Riesel off the hook. What could he do? Only one thing: go over. "Hey!" Riesel greeted Tiona, Tioni, and Lefiya, then looked at Ace. Ace was also looking at him. As they made eye contact, seemingly recalling the events from last night, both of them smiled slightly, as if on cue. The difference was that his smile was somewhat plain, while Ace's smile seemed a bit shy. Witnessing this scene, everyone had question marks floating above their heads. What's going on with these two? Chapter 69, Riesel and Ace. What's up with you guys? Tiona's gaze wandered back and forth between Riesel and Ace, her curiosity evident as she asked. What's going on? Tioni, not maintaining her usual composed demeanor, showed a rare expression of interest, staring at Riesel and Ace with a teasing glint in her eyes. As everyone knows, Amazonesses were a rather warlike female warrior race, known for their bold and adventurous nature. Since this race only consisted of females and lacked males, they had to rely on males from other races in order to reproduce. Because of this, Amazonesses had a tendency to plunder men and highly valued relationships between men and women. In this regard, they always acted boldly, without the shyness that other races had. Thanks to this, among the Amazonas race, there were many with chaotic lives. Since the entire race consisted only of females, their behavior was considered quite vulgar by more conservative races like the elf race. Although Tiona and Tioni had grown up in Loki Familia since childhood and weren't as vulgar as other Amazonesses, the reverence for relationships between men and women was deeply ingrained in their genes. Usually, Loki Familia's members were quite disciplined. Even the Familia top executives, who were at least 40 years old, hadn't displayed any overt romantic relationships. Within the Familia, there was no one getting married or even forming romantic relationships. Now, with the sudden appearance of such signs involving Riesel and Ace at that, Tiona and Tioni couldn't help but feel a rare excitement. While others may not be as excited as the twins, they all still wore subtle and peculiar expressions. Especially Lefiya, with her cute mouth agape, looking stupefied. Unfortunately, Riesel's and Ace's next actions didn't satisfy the onlookers. What about Bet? Riesel, as if nothing had happened, withdrew his gaze, put away his smile, and calmly asked. Bet didn't come. Ace, also resuming her usual somewhat aloof and stoic expression, replied to him. It doesn't matter what that stinky wolf is up to. Tiona, not caring about Bet's whereabouts, instead focused on Riesel's and Ace's recent eye contact and smiles. I mean, did you two do something we don't know about? Her question gave off a sense of mischief. Whistle Tioni couldn't help but whistle and frivolously remarked. Riesel and Ace, hey? To be honest, that's a possibility I never imagined. When girls gather, gossip is an inevitable topic since they never shy away from discussing such private matters. Who's showing signs of developing certain relationships, who's exchanging meaningful glances, and even who might have a secret crush or plans to confess. These were the usual subjects. Yes, Familia was akin to a big family, but not everyone in Familia was related by blood. With dozens, even hundreds, of people coming together, both men and women, it was impossible for nothing gossip-worthy to happen. Surprisingly, Ace rarely partook in such discussions. Not that she was unpopular, far from it. With a beauty comparable to a goddess and someone considered a princess by various gods, her popularity in Orario had always been in the top 3. In the Familia, aside from Reveria, who was a high elf royalty, hardly anyone could match Ace's popularity. Countless admired her, and admirers of this doll princess could fill the city gates if they gathered together. Rumor had it that the number of individuals with ulterior motives approaching Ace had easily reached 1,000. However, due to an overly protective elf figure with an almost unhealthy affection for her and thanks to her relationship with the goddess who always acted unreasonably, all these people met their untimely end, including some gods. Even within Loki Familia, among the male members, more than half secretly admired Ace. Nevertheless, the female members themselves couldn't be excluded. Lefiya, who somehow got her eyes spinning in confusion at this moment, might have something to say about that. Even Bet, the werewolf with a seemingly rough personality that bordered on gangster-like, hadn't hidden his affection for Ace. Almost everyone in the Familia knew about his feelings for her, except Ace herself. But what about Ace? There had never been a hint of scandal surrounding her. Topics teasingly discussing who was getting close or acting suspicious with whom had never been associated with her. The reason was simple. Ace spent her days either in the dungeon or practicing her swordsmanship. She was the kind of person whose expression rarely changed, appearing aloof to others, a bona fide doll princess. How could such a person have any ambiguous scandal? So far, there had never been any indication within the Familia that Ace was developing any kind of relationship with the opposite sex. If there were, that person would likely find themselves tied up in a sack, candles lit, and guaranteed to be the subject of envy, jealousy, and hatred from fellow Familia members, including the goddess herself, which would lead to their ultimate destruction. Ace had also never gotten particularly close to any member of the opposite sex. Although she had been with Loki Familia for quite some time, the opposite sex closest to her, aside from Finn and Bet, was probably Riesel, who had been sparring with her frequently and gradually getting to know her better. Now, with these two suddenly showing signs, not just Tiona and Tioni, but the others also lowered their voices, perked up their ears, and silently paid attention to Riesel and Ace. Unfortunately, when it came to this topic, Ace tilted her head, looking completely clueless, while Riesel remained calm throughout. "You guys are thinking too much, nothing happened between us," Riesel said calmly while shaking his head. "Only last night, when I was updating my status, we had a little chat about our growth." Ace nodded, indicating agreement. Really?" Tiona seemed a bit skeptical. "Yes." Riesel remained calm. His serious demeanor convinced many that he was telling the truth. "Ha! As I thou ga." Raoul let out a sigh of relief and mumbled something on the side, only to be elbowed by Anakitty, causing him to cry out in pain. "Domu, Domu." Mr. Riesel and Miss Ace often discuss topics related to their growth. It must be just that. Lefiya, who had finally recovered, declared loudly, seemingly enthusiastic. "Meh, lame." Tioni regretfully said. "I thought Ace was finally catching on." Ace tilted her head again, a question mark appearing above her head. That expression, that appearance, directly overwhelmed many men and women present. So cute. What cute creature is this? In their hearts, everyone was howling like a beast, especially a certain elf who was on the verge of screaming right then and there. "What are you doing?" At this moment, a voice from the direction of the manor suddenly intervened. Finn, Reveria, and Gareth walked out of the manor together, arriving at the entrance. "Why is it so noisy? What are you guys talking about?" Gareth asked with a furrowed brow. "No, nothing." Seeing their superiors all appearing together, everyone immediately shook their heads, sitting up straight. "It doesn't feel like nothing to me." Reveria gave a meaningful look to everyone. Finn seemed to have a suspicion. He looked at the calm Riesel and Ace, then at the other members sitting upright, and chuckled. "Since there's nothing else, let's get ready to set off." Finn briskly changed the subject. "Set off? Now?" Tiona asked in astonishment. "What about Bet? That dumb wolf hasn't shown up yet." "Forget about him," Gareth said, fuming with rage. That rascal ran off to the dungeon alone and doesn't give a damn to anyone. Everyone exchanged glances and then simultaneously looked at Riesel. Riesel remained silent and unconsciously averted his gaze. He could guess what was the reason. Bet running off to the dungeon was definitely because Bet got stimulated by him. The lone wolf was naturally proud, and it was simply impossible to expect him to admit defeat to Riesel like how Tioni, and others were. The top executives also knew Bet's personality. Though they said otherwise, they were only somewhat worried that the werewolf youth, stimulated by Riesel, might take unnecessary risks to enhance his strength to level up. Exploits were difficult to achieve after all, especially for level 5. If Bet went to challenge powerful monsters or venture into dangerous territories, the likelihood of losing his life was at least 70 to 80%. Let him be, he should know his limits. Finn consoled everyone for a moment before speaking up. I'll start organizing the tasks, so listen up, everyone. With that, Finn started to give instructions. As usual, Riveria, Gareth, and I will handle the magic stones at the guild for Valis. Raoul and Aki, each of you takes some drop items and sells them at the Familia we visited before. For the commissions of Cadmus's spring and medicine-related drop items, Ace, Tioni, and Lefiya, you four will handle it together. Finn turned to Riesel. Riesel, you'll go with them and take a good look. Perhaps in the future, you'll need to handle these tasks independently. Yes. Riesel naturally had no objections to this arrangement. Finn then went on to give instructions one by one, make arrangements, and finally, applauded. Okay, everyone, follow the planned itinerary and head to your respective destinations. Lastly, there's a celebration feast tonight for those returning from the expedition, make sure not to miss it. Any questions? Finn scanned everyone, checking each face. Seeing no one raise their hands, he clapped his hands. Clap. Okay, let's set off. Oh. With a chorus of acknowledgements, everyone began to disperse. Let's go, Riesel. Ace called out. Yeah. Riesel nodded and soon followed the four girls. Chapter 70, Dea Saint. In Orario, all the magic stones brought out from the dungeon have to be exchanged for money at the guild. The guild, being the manager of the city, directly monopolized the production of magic stones from the source. They processed these magic stones into products and sold them around the world, earning a huge amount of money for themselves and the city. Therefore, magic stones could only be exchanged for money at the guild and could not be sold elsewhere, or else the guild would crack down on it. But drop items were a different story. Drop items could be used as materials for creating weapons, armor, and even medicine. Though they could also be exchanged for money at the guild, the price was fixed, the lowest in the market. While the guild monopolized magic stones, it didn't control the buying and selling of drop items. In many familias, exchanging magic stones at the guild made sense, but selling drop items was more profitable in business-type familias. Especially for those confident in their negotiation abilities, bargaining with business-type familias for precious drop items was not impossible. However, selling them on your own might lead to being tricked. Many beginner adventurers fell into this trap, hoping for a high price but ending up being scammed and potentially losing money. Of course, this risk was unlikely for the well-known and prestigious familias. After all, no one would want to offend a big and powerful familia, especially those capable of retrieving valuable resources from the deep floors of the dungeon. Many merchants, shops, and business-type familias feared upsetting them and being blacklisted, which was a significant loss for those in need of deep floors resources to create high-rank weapons, armor, medicine, or items. In this situation, Loki Familia, as one of the strongest and largest exploration-type familias, didn't need to worry about being deceived. Aside from higher UPS like Finn exchanging magic stones for money at the guild, other members could confidently form small groups or operate independently. Riesel's group had also arrived at the Northwest Street, walking down the Adventurer Street toward their destination Insect Familia. A familia specializing in medicinal stuff, hey. Riesel mumbled in thought. Yes. Lefiya, for once not gripping her staff, walked beside him and explained softly. Insect Familia is a familia focused on healing and medicinal areas. Their main activities include selling potions they've developed and providing professional healing services and special items to the public. This familia had quite a reputation in Orario. Not only did they sell advanced medicines and items not found in other stores or familias, but they also offered superior healing services than the guild's healing facilities. They were highly praised by adventurers. Many adventurers with injuries that couldn't be healed even with elixirs have received treatment at Sect Familia, and most have fully recovered. Some even had their sight restored, while others with severe injuries installed prosthetics in this Familia, enabling them to lead normal lives without hindrance. Therefore, despite Sect Familia's high prices for goods and services, making it unaffordable for many adventurers, it remained a shop worth frequenting for familias with above-average financial resources and wealth. This time, our commission to collect water from Cadmus's spring on the 51st floor is coming from Sect Familia. Tioni complained. They dumped this annoying commission on us. I'm totally gonna chat with Ermit about it. Don't go causing trouble, Tioni. Tiona said casually while pursing her lips. Ermit is a good girl, it's definitely her shady god who came up with this idea. If you offend her, be careful she denies you her healing services next time. I'm not in a condition where I need Ermit's healing. Tioni paused slightly. But you're right. If you anger Dea Saint, even Captain will have a headache. For Captain's sake, I'll endure. Whatever. Tiona stuck out her tongue at her sister. What a love-struck fool, Finn clearly doesn't want anything to do with you. Who said that? Tioni shouted as if hit in a sore spot. Captain clearly loves me. Met. Tiona immediately distanced herself from her, making Tioni frustrated. Ace and Lefiya watched the Amazonas twins playfully quarreling, one with a confused expression and the other awkwardly smiling, following them from behind as they continued forward. Only Riesel squinted his eyes as he heard their conversation. Dea Saint, hey. He remembered. This person was an influential figure that appeared in the original work. How influential? Recalling the abilities of this Dea Saint, Riesel's mind suddenly became active. If I could gain that magic. Riesel muttered quietly to himself, a smirk forming on his lips. Soon, the entire group arrived in front of a massive building. It was a structure constructed with pristine white stones. On the building, an insignia featuring a ball of light and herb patterns was decorated. It was the emblem of Sect Familia, just like Loki's clown design, a symbol of the Familia. We're here. Tiona took the lead, and upon reaching their destination, she immediately pushed open the door. Inside was a storefront. It seemed to be a place dedicated to selling medicine, with shelves filled with medicine lining the walls and various drugs displayed behind the counter directly opposite the entrance. Many adventurers were browsing around, and each one's equipment was impressive, clearly indicating they were high-level adventurers. The one in charge of the counter, upon seeing newcomers, smiled slightly and bowed. Welcome, everyone from Loki Familia. A girl, who seemed like a regular staff member, greeted them. However, she clearly had the typical vibe of an important character in a story. She was a human girl with delicate features, standing at less than 150 centimeters tall. Despite her petite stature, she sported long, silver-white silky hair, and her large eyes were adorned with long lashes. She wore a uniform predominantly in white, instantly suggesting the role of a healer. The moment Riesel laid eyes on this girl, he couldn't help but overlay her image with that of the priest who had once healed his wounds in the main world. Ace and the others, familiar with the girl, approached and exchanged greetings. Long time no see, Ermid. It's been a while, Miss Ermid. Ace and Lefiya greeted in succession. Miss Ace, Miss Lefiya, it's been a while. The girl behind the counter, known as Ermid, responded with a sincere smile. Ermid Tzanare. Riesel scrutinized the silver-white-haired girl carefully. In Orario, Ermid Tzanare's name was far from unknown. She served as the face of Sect Familia and was a level 2 healer with exceptionally advanced and rare healing magic. She was considered a saint by various gods and adventurers. Lefiya, valued by the Familia for her attack power exceeding her level, shared the spotlight with Ermid. Like Lefiya, this human girl possessed extraordinarily potent magic despite being only a level 2 third-class adventurer. Her presence, role, and value surpassed even those level 5 first-class adventurers. Considering this, when facing Ermid, everyone conversed with her as equals. Hello. Riesel nodded in greeting. And who might you be? Ermid looked at him with doubt, prompting Tioni to answer. This is our monster rookie who recently joined our Familia. Her words made Ermid blink in realization. I see. Ermid observed him for a moment, then nodded. You must be Mr. Riesel Brynhart, right? You know me. Riesel raised an eyebrow. You must be joking. Ermid smiled slightly. In the present-day Orario, those who don't know you are the minority. After all, he was the rookie who had climbed from level 1 to level 5 in just over 3 months, causing quite a lot of controversy. The evidence was clear as adventurers around, upon hearing their conversation, immediately cast their eyes toward Riesel. Is he Riesel Brynhart? Trickster swordsman, hey! The monster rookie of Loki Familia. Adventurers with clearly high levels cast scrutinizing glances at Riesel one after another. Riesel paid no attention to those looks, only smiled at Ermid and stopped speaking. Although she was somewhat curious about him, she didn't show it. Are you all here today for the Adventurer Commission? Ermid intended to get down to business. Yep. Tioni replied. We brought the water from Cadmus's spring. Can you confirm it? After saying that, she took off the backpack she had been carrying and pulled out bottles of spring water. It was the water Finn's party had collected. During the spring water collection, Riesel's party sensed trouble ahead of time and opted not to complete the task. Instead, they left Cadmus's spring as soon as possible, almost causing the commission to fail. Fortunately, Finn's party collected the spring water, and it seemed to be enough for the commission. Ermid picked up the water bottles one by one and confirmed them. This is indeed the water from Cadmus's spring, and the quantity is satisfactory. Ermid said with a smile. Thank you for your hard work. I have the reward prepared for you. She took out a medicine box from under the counter, and inside the box were bottles of potions. Elixir. Riesel recognized these potions. Yes. Ermid nodded. According to the agreement, the reward for completing this adventurer commission is 20 doses of the highest quality elixir. 1 dose of the highest quality elixir was worth 500,000 valis. 20 doses meant a whopping 10 million valis. We're making quite a bit on this one, hey. Riesel suddenly remembered the amount of water in Cadmus's spring. If only he had taken all that water with him. Unfortunately, there was no if in this world. Chapter 71, Top Class Healing Magic. Apart from the Adventurer Commission, Riesel's group had brought a bunch of stuff to sell during their visit to Diansect Familia. Within Diansect Familia, they independently developed special items like potions and healing items, creating a demand for drop items that could be used as materials. Finn handed over some drop items that could be used as medicinal materials to Riesel's group, asking them to sell them off. Among these items were the wings of Cadmus that Lefiya casually picked up in the cave at Cadmus's spring. This was a very precious drop item, not only appearing on super deep floors like the 51st floor but also dropping from the body of the strong dragon, Cadmus. Just that fact alone was enough to fetch a high price. Tioni and Ermid engaged in a heated debate over the wings, arguing vehemently until they finally settled on a deal for 12 million valis. 12 million valis? Riesel marveled. Selling a single drop item for 12 million valis was truly eye-opening for him. It was already equivalent to the transaction price of quite valuable second-rank special equipment. If they aimed higher, they might even be able to buy his hermit. Indeed, everything brought out from the super deep floors was precious, whether it was the spring water from Cadmus's spring or the drop items from Cadmus, each worth at least 10 million valis or more. On this journey, Riesel's group alone earned several tens of millions of valis. If they added the money Finn and the other groups earned by exchanging magic stones at the guild, Loki Familia made at least a few billion valis from this expedition. A few billion valis. Riesel, who had worked hard until now, had earned nearly 10 million valis. However, this expedition alone brought in many times more loot than what he earned since he became an adventurer. However, there was still a significant loss. Despite seeming like a lot, a few billion valis would probably not make much of a splash in a big familia like Loki Familia. Not to mention that the main weapons of the first-class adventurer members were almost all first-class equipment worth over 1 billion valis each, even if it was just a little short. On this expedition, except for a few people, everyone's weapons dissolved due to those worm monsters. These dissolved weapons meant a loss of several billion valis. Adding to that was the loss of other items like spare weapons, medicines, and backup items. This expedition was undoubtedly a real blow to Loki Familia. If they could achieve their goal, successfully reaching unexplored floors of the 59th floor, they might be able to compensate for the losses. Unfortunately, due to those worm monsters, Loki Familia, with a massive loss of resources, couldn't continue the expedition. As a result, the highest floor they reached on this expedition was only the 51st floor, not even reaching the final floor they had reached in the previous expedition. What's even more infuriating was that the worm monsters causing all this could self-destruct. When they did, they released a massive amount of corrosive acid, dissolving everything around them. Their magic stone and drop items didn't even leave a trace, only causing continuous losses without any gains. Thanks to this, Loki Familia had a loss of several billion valis in this expedition. Right now, they were just trying to patch up the losses as much as possible. Fortunately, this was still manageable for Loki Familia. If any other Familia faced this kind of loss, they'd probably just straight up disband on the spot. Several billion valis, the combined wealth and assets of some big familias probably didn't even come close to this. Loki Familia not only had to make up for the losses but also had to shell out more to prepare for the next expedition. The whole member had to replace their main weapons, and that needed some serious planning. Finn, Reveria, and Gareth knew this, so they wanted to wrap up the aftermath of the expedition as soon as possible to discuss the next steps. Okay, let's seal the deal at this price. Tioni finally negotiated a deal with Ermid, wearing a satisfied expression. Ace, Lefiya, Tiona, and Riesel could only watch from the sidelines, unable to get involved in this kind of battlefield. Seeing the two savvy women finally settling on a price, Riesel took a step forward. Miss Ermid. Riesel looked at Ermid with an earnest expression. Can I ask you to show me your healing magic once? His out-of-nowhere request caught everyone off guard. What's up, Riesel? Tiona wondered. Are you injured or something? She thought he wanted Ermid to treat his injuries. Magic. Ace and Lefiya, on the other hand, caught on and their eyes started to sparkle. Well. Tioni chuckled after a moment, realizing what he was up to. After all, she had seen his status before and could guess what he aimed. Only Ermid tilted her head in confusion as she glanced over Riesel's body. You don't seem to have any particularly obvious injuries. Is it some hidden illness? If so, we can recommend some really useful items. Hearing that, Riesel shook his head. I don't want healing items. What he wanted was her magic. He wanted to learn her famous magic, the special magic of Dea Saint, Ermid Tizanere. In Orario, she was already a legend. Ermid's magic was top-class healing magic capable of healing wounds, stamina, status ailments, and curses. What made it even more amazing was its sustained effects and ability to heal multiple targets within its range. She could even selectively choose the effects of the magic when casting it, making it a truly versatile and omnipotent healing magic. With this magic alone, as long as she stood on the battlefield, her party could participate in any battle with almost zero casualties, even against a floor boss. Therefore, even though she was only a level 2 third-class adventurer, just about to step into the threshold of high-class adventurers, she was the most valuable talent that any party or even army could desire. A healer who could support an entire front line alone. Furthermore, it was this magic that earned her the alias of Dea Saint. In Loki Familia, it wasn't like they didn't have healers, but compared to this girl, those healers couldn't even be considered in the same league. It was like comparing heaven and earth. Reveria, the strongest mage in Orario, once admitted that when it came to healing magic, she was nowhere near Ermid. This evaluation was no joke. Out of the 9 types of magic that Reveria possessed, 3 were specifically for recovery and healing. But even if she added up all 3, they might not even be a match to the single healing magic of Ermid. Because of that, Reveria decided not to teach those 3 healing magic to Riesel and taught him other magic instead. If he could learn Ermid's magic, there was simply no need to bother with Reveria's 3 healing magic that, when combined, couldn't match up to a single healing magic of Ermid. Truthfully, Riesel had been eyeing Ermid's magic for quite some time. Her magic had a considerable presence in the original work, and he knew its specific effects, so he didn't need anyone to explain the magic to him. All he needed was for the user of the magic itself to demonstrate it once in front of him, confirming its existence firsthand with his own eyes. Of course, Riesel couldn't just tell the truth about this. If Diane Sect Familia found out he wanted to learn their most treasured and special magic, would they allow it? After all, he wasn't in the same familia as them, he was an outsider. Within the same familia, they'd be thrilled to have as many top-class healing magic users as possible. However, when it was a different familia, it turned into a competition, a competitive relationship. If another familia mastered their special magic, what would Diane Sect Familia do in the future for their business? They'd probably be racking their brains all day, wondering if there would be a new competitor in the market offering similar services. I know when Miss Ermid personally uses your healing magic, the fee must be high. Riesel said calmly. I'll pay the full price, so please use your healing magic for me once. Seeing him seemed so adamant, Ermid was puzzled but didn't ask further questions. Some patients do act like this because, suffering from some hidden illness, they desperately hide their condition. Maybe this rumored monster rookie also had some hidden illness? She better not to pry. After all, it was all about healing service. Using her healing magic for treatment, and then paying up was her usual routine. Her Familia provided healing services, so she had no reason to refuse. All right then, let me take care of you. Ermid stepped out from the counter. Need to head to the treatment room? Nah. Riesel shook his head. Right here is fine. All right. Ermid didn't insist. Let's get started then. With that, she opened her hands and closed her eyes. Healing droplets, tears of light, eternal sanctuary. Her chant echoed in the room as if a saint was offering a song to the gods. Compose a medicinal hymn, 365. The melody of the healer's almanac saves all things. Come, destruction of evil. The burial of wounds, interment of disease. Curses be gone in the light of vitality. In the name of all that is holy, I heal you. This was a truly long magic chant. Under Ermid, a pure white magic circle spun open, causing countless light particles to float out. Dia Fratel. That was the name of the top-class healing magic in the entire Orario, a name even heard outside the city. Watching the light particles floating toward him, Riesel immediately smiled. Chapter 72, Hostess of Fertility. Night quietly descended. As the evening glow gradually gave way to the night, members of Loki Familia, who had been running around various parts of Orario, returned one by one to Twilight Manor. The large amount of drop items and precious resources taken by them had disappeared, replaced by bags filled with glittering gold coins. Riesel's group also returned to Twilight Manor, with bags containing millions of valis and boxes of elixirs. They could be considered returning with a full load. Of course, while the Familia returned with plenty, Riesel himself had spent quite a bit of money. Asking Ermid to use her famous top-class healing magic for a comprehensive healing session came at a price a whopping 1 million valis, twice as expensive as the highest quality elixir. But the money spent was well worth it. For 1 million valis, he could secure the permanent right to use the top-class healing magic of Dea Saint. Such a sum would be willingly spent by people all over the world if they were given the same choice. Riesel was no exception, he paid the amount without hesitation. Ermid's magic was now officially learned by him. From this perspective, he could also be considered returning with a full load. However, for the Familia itself, the money earned today couldn't quite fill the gap. We gotta tighten our belts a bit for a while. Gareth muttered in front of everyone, indicating how precarious their Familia's situation was. On the other hand, the goddess herself seemed unconcerned. Forget all that for now. Let's not stress about troublesome things until tomorrow. Today's all about feasting. Don't overthink it, just chow down and enjoy your drinks. With her declaration, Loki led the members of the expedition party out of the manor, under the envious gaze of the remaining members. Having a grand feast upon returning from an expedition was Loki Familia's tradition. In the name of relaxing the tired expedition party, Loki, who loved alcohol, would throw a big feast on the day after the expedition party's return, allowing them to enjoy themselves. According to her, the fact that they could come back safe and sound was reason enough to celebrate. So, regardless of the expedition's success or failure, profit or loss, as long as there were no living sacrifices or significant losses, the celebration feast had to be held no matter what. The Familia could cut costs anywhere but not with this celebration feast. The three top executives had no objections to their goddess's statement. Clearly, they also agreed to comfort the hard-working members of the Familia who went on the expedition. Thus, Loki Familia's expedition party, numbering several dozen people, under the leadership of their goddess, headed to West Street. Unlike Northwest Street, known as the Adventurer Street, West Street housed many ordinary citizens. The guild's main industry centered around the worldwide trade of magic stone products and employed numerous laborers responsible for manufacturing these items in Orario. The number of these workers surpassed that of adventurers exploring dungeons, and they typically resided on the bustling West Street, living with their families. As a result, West Street boasted a large residential area, with numerous establishments like taverns, inns, pubs, and restaurants standing side by side. Many adventurers liked to unwind here after dungeon exploration, shedding their equipment for relaxation. Loki Familia had finally arrived on this street and found a particular building. It was a two-story stone building of a pub. Its setup resembled an outdoor cafe, with several open-air seating arrangements outside the entrance. Inside, a lively atmosphere wafted out, indicating the prosperity of the business. Outside the door, a signboard bearing the pub's name read Hostess of Fertility. Hostess of Fertility. Reading this name, Riesel, who was chatting casually with Lefiya, suddenly halted in his footsteps. However, Loki didn't hesitate for a moment and strode in with a somewhat swaggering gait as she entered the pub. Mamma mia! We've arrived! Loki's loud shout upon entering instantly silenced the noisy chatter inside the pub. Many heads turned to look outside, only to find many members of Loki Familia. It's Loki Familia! So many! Oh, I get it, they are here for some celebration party, maybe. Some cried out in surprise, others whispered to each other, and some clearly weren't experiencing this scenario for the first time, displaying an understanding expression. Inside the pub, a female host who seemed to be the proprietress standing behind a bar-like service counter glanced at Loki and the members of Loki Familia, lightly snorting. "Sir, greet the guests." This robust woman, resembling a pugilist in physique, was not at all intimidated by Loki Familia's reputation. On the contrary, she displayed an attitude of indifference, calling out to the interior of the pub. "Coming, coming." Accompanied by a light response, a girl who seemed to be from the human race hurriedly emerged from inside the pub. She wore a white women's shirt and a knee-length, tender leaf-colored vest skirt. Over the skirt, she tied a longer apron around her waist. With glossy dark grey hair tied into a short ponytail, she looked innocent and cute, a snow-white, delicate girl. "Yo, isn't this Seer?" Loki immediately approached and teased. "Been ages, looking even more beautiful, hey." "Thanks for the compliment, Lady Loki." Seer replied with an innocent smile matching her appearance while subtly dodging Loki's lecherous hand. "But please, don't harass female staff." "Meh, no big deal." Loki unforgivingly retorted. "It's not like we're losing anything. We're all women, better for us than those stinky men, yet." Ignoring Loki's unreasonable statements, Seer turned to the people behind Loki. "Please come in, Lady Loki has already reserved a table, but the number of people is a bit much. We have only one table available inside, the rest can sit in the outdoor seating area, is that okay?" That was a reasonable request. If the entire expedition party entered the pub, there would be no space for other customers. Considering the guests' feelings and the impact on business, they couldn't just push everyone outside. "No problem." Finn nodded. "Just give us one table inside, the rest will stay outside." "Thanks for your understanding." Seer bowed to everyone and skillfully dodged the advances of a persistent and inappropriate goddess. "Now, please follow me inside." Seer turned and led the way to the reserved table. "You guys stay outside." Finn instructed a portion of the group. "Sure. No prob." "Yes, Captain." Everyone nodded without objections. Being able to enter the pub meant a special status within the Familia. Finn, Riveria, Gareth, Ace, Tiona, Tioni, and other first-class adventurers were all going inside. Lefiya could also enter, accompanied by Raoul and Anakitty from the second string. "Riesel, you come in too." Finn beckoned to Riesel, who stood at the pub entrance. Riesel glanced at the tall and sturdy proprietress grinning at him inside and then at Seer leading the way. Eventually, he took a step and walked into the pub. By now, the pub was nearly full. Adventurers of various races seemed to have gathered here, drinking, eating, and even playing together. Only one particularly large space in the middle remained vacant, contrasting with the lively atmosphere. The interior was decorated with wooden panels, and the magic stone lamps on the ceiling provided subtle lighting, creating a stable and romantic atmosphere. Led by Seer, the group entered, drawing the attention of many. Especially Riesel, walking alongside Ace and Lefiya, attracted considerable interest. "Yo, is that the dude from all those rumors?" "Should be. He's like the only new face around here." "TCH, he looks mad young, right?" "Yeah, pretty young, he's only 17 after all." "The Sword Princess is even younger than him though." "No way, for real?" "Yeah, Sword Princess hit level 2 at 8. It took her 8 more years to hit level 5. This dude is just built differently." He doesn't strike me as all that impressive. Going from level 1 to level 5 in just over 3 months? Nah, I'm not buying it." "The guild said it though." "You think they'd lie?" "I'm just saying, sounds suspicious to me." Similar discussions continued, maybe because some people had a bit too much to drink, so their voices weren't well concealed. Lefiya and several familiar members frowned at this, somewhat angry. Finn, Riveria, and Gareth also glanced over, making them shut up. On the contrary, Riesel appeared indifferent as he basked in numerous gazes and casually joined his Familia companions at the table. "Enjoy your meal." Seer, accompanied by 2 catgirl staff, served food and drinks to everyone and then stepped back with a smile. "Yosh." Loki stood up and raised her glass. "Well, for everyone who worked hard on the expedition, cheers." "Cheers." Clink. Everyone raised their glasses one after another and clinked them together. The atmosphere suddenly became lively. Following Loki's lead, the group first drank, and after a while, they began to reach for the delicious dishes on the table. Since it was a feast, there were naturally no rules for dining. Loki didn't follow any formalities either and just settled with a few words before indulging in eating and drinking, finishing a whole cup of wine. The rest were the same, chatting, laughing, or savoring wine and delicacies, showing their familiarity with each other. "MMR Riesel, I'll toast to you." Lefiya, sitting on Riesel's left, shyly raised her glass to him. "Sure, let's have a drink." Riesel smiled and clinked his glass with her, then turned to the other side. "Ace, aren't you drinking?" Ace sat upright on his right, holding a drink and sipping it delicately. Just as Riesel was about to say something else, he suddenly felt 2 pairs of gazes on him, each with a slightly different vibe. Those gazes made him pause for a moment, and he instinctively turned his head to see where they were coming from. In the next moment, Riesel laid eyes on 2 people. Chapter 73, A Chance Encounter. In the corner of the bar counter, there was a boy and a girl. The girl was the one who had just guided everyone from the Loki Familia, a girl named Seer. She stood beside the boy, chatting away while sneakily glancing over to the Loki Familia's direction, or more precisely, toward Riesel's direction. It wasn't until she caught Riesel's gaze that her face turned a little red. She awkwardly lowered her head, resembling a shy little girl caught peeking at her crush. The boy talking to Seer, on the other hand, was shooting looks at Riesel that were filled with envy, admiration, and longing. With white hair, red eyes, and a somewhat youthful face, he looked around 13 to 14 years old. Overall, he gave off a harmless vibe, like a naive boy. Riesel recognized this boy. On the day of the expedition, this boy had also cast similar glances at him and the others from the crowd. "He's here too, hey?" Riesel said inwardly, quickly recalling the original work. He remembered that in the original work, when the Loki Familia returned from their expedition, they disturbed a group of Minotaur residing on the 17th floor. These level 2 monsters scattered and fled, making their way to the 5th floor. In the end, one of them targeted this boy. It was only thanks to Ace's intervention that he didn't meet his end on the 5th floor. However, perhaps due to Riesel's presence, this expedition had some differences from the original work. Despite encountering the worm monsters mentioned in the original work, they didn't come across any Minotaur on the 17th floor, and no commotion sent them running to other floors. As a result, "We didn't meet in the dungeon, but here we are." Honestly, Riesel felt tempted to approach and get to know the boy better. After all, as far as he knew, this boy was the only one in this world who could compete with him in growth potential. The boy seemed weak right now, since Riesel could tell he was a level 1 rookie who had recently received a blessing. Yet, given 3 months, maybe this boy could reach Riesel's current position. Even though some of the original plots had changed, Riesel didn't believe it would affect the boy's growth. After all, this boy was this world's protagonist, this world's main character with limitless potential. Given the right opportunity, this potential would explode sooner or later. Furthermore, this opportunity could be anything. At least, looking into the boy's red eyes, Riesel had a feeling that this boy would absolutely make strides toward his side. Too bad. Riesel shifted his gaze away. He couldn't go over there because there was someone next to the boy. Moreover, it happened to be someone he didn't want to get involved with, someone he didn't want to touch for the time being. "Mr. Riesel." While Riesel was pondering such things, a soft voice from the elf girl next to him awakened him from his reverie. "What are you looking at?" Lefiya looked in the direction he had just been watching, puzzled. Ace also glanced in the same direction, coincidentally locking eyes with Seer, who gave her a slight smile. Ace responded with a slightly awkward nod. "Nothing." Riesel withdrew his scattered thoughts, holding his drink, and laughed. Just happened to see an interesting guy. Interesting guy? Lefiya asked curiously. Who? A little guy. Riesel said to Lefiya. If you're interested, I'll introduce you next time. He was just saying it casually, but her reaction was much bigger than he had imagined. I am not interested in men at all. Panicked, Lefiya blurted out that statement without thinking. A hush fell over the entire room. Lefiya was first stunned, then suddenly realized what she had just said, realizing how dreadful it sounded. Everyone in the pub, including the people at the neighboring table, stared at her with strange and awkward expressions. I mean, Lefiya. Tioni looked at Lefiya as if she were looking at a warrior. This kind of thing is better discussed privately, you know. Why shout it out in public? So, Lefiya is someone like that, hey. Tiona blinked and said in a teasing tone. No wonder. I always felt your gaze toward Ace was a bit off. Looking at me. Ace looked genuinely confused. Lefiya. Reveria squinted her eyes, the cold gleam in her eyes looking at her disciple making it somewhat intimidating. As for Finn and Gareth, they seemed to be pretending not to hear, while the rest either gave Lefiya teasing glances or pretended not to hear. In the end, Loki, who was already a bit tipsy, held her drink and laughed loudly. Mwahaha. Lefiya, that's bold of you, but you're right. Who likes stinky men anyway? If you're gonna like someone, it better be a cute and pretty girl. That was a lethal blow. And no. I mean I didn't. Lefiya's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water, desperately trying to explain something but failing to find the right words. Especially when she saw Riesel suddenly fall silent, wearing a face of embarrassment and not daring to speak, while Ace still looked confused, completely clueless about what was happening. Hicks. Wait. Lefiya burst into tears and rushed out. Lefiya. Where are you going? Calm down. Everyone cried out in surprise. Even Riesel and Ace couldn't stay seated as they watched Lefiya shedding tears and preparing to run out of the pub. They quickly chased after her in succession. What followed was a chaotic scene. To catch the elf who tried to escape in embarrassment and almost jumped into the river, everyone put forth a great effort. Please let me disappear and vanish from this world. Lefiya's shout echoed in various corners of the pub, causing quite a commotion. Ha 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 ha. In the beginning, the people in the pub looked at the Loki Familia with awe. However, after witnessing this farce, they all burst into laughter. Humph. The robust proprietress, referred to as Mamma Mia by Loki, watched the commotion with a couple of snorts, but a smile lingered on her face. The pub waitress rushed forward to help, turning the entire pub into a lively scene. Even the Familia members on the outdoor seats were drawn into the spectacle. Ha! It's turned into quite a mess. Seer remarked while wearing a cheerful smile. The white-haired boy sitting next to Seer, as seen in his eyes, became even more envious and fascinated as he saw this scene. Is this Loki Familia? The white-haired boy stared at the chaotic scene of Loki Familia with his red eyes as if witnessing something dazzling. Does Mr. Bell really like Loki Familia? Seer, noticing his expression, asked with some interest. Well. I only admire their atmosphere. The white-haired boy, known as Bell, seemed a bit embarrassed. I'm just drawn to the lively atmosphere of Loki Familia, that's all. Bell added softly. Because my Familia members consist only of me, I yearn for that kind of feeling where everyone is together, having companions. Isn't that where heroes belong? He gazed into the distance with a longing expression. Someday, I also want to. In the unnoticed hidden corner inside the pub, a white-haired boy quietly made a wish that no one believed in but had the ability to influence the future. The only witness to this scene was Seer. She observed Belle, with a gaze containing an unnoticed and subtle fascination. This fascination persisted until she shifted her gaze toward the Loki Familia's side. Her attention was fixated on a specific person within the Familia, her lips curving into a barely noticeable smile. A feast that lasted until late at night was finally declared over. Most of the guests in the pub had left, leaving only a few drunkards sprawled on the tables. I want to die. Lefiya, drunk and with rosy cheeks, seemed intentionally avoiding something as she lay on Ace's back, mumbling words of despair. It's okay, Lefiya, let's go back. Ace, unusually gentle, said softly to Lefiya. Hicks. Miss Ace. Lefiya, whether moved or something else, had eyes brimming with tears and blush, looking unusually cute. Mwahahaha. Completely drunk, Loki laughed uproariously while being carried on Riveria's back, who wore a disdainful expression. All right, let's go back. Finn signaled to the Familia members and set off on the way home. Let's go, let's go. That dumb wolf didn't come back in the end, hey. Tiona and Tioni, still sober, chatted with everyone as they walked back home. Almost everyone was drunk, guided by the few who managed to stay sober, heading back toward the Twilight Manor. Meanwhile, only Riesel still remained at the pub. Thanks for everything. After expressing his gratitude and handing a bag of coins to Mia, Riesel prepared to leave. At the entrance of the pub, Seer, who happened to be cleaning a table, saw this scene. After a moment of hesitation, she gathered her courage to approach him. With a hesitant look, she had her cheeks slightly blushing. Riesel looked at the girl quietly, and after being silent for a while, asked. Do you need something? No, nothing. Seer waved her hand, a bit nervously. I just wanted to wish you good luck. Her hesitant and slightly blushing look really resembled a fan seeing her idol. Riesel gazed at her face for a while before showing a faint smile. Thanks, I appreciate it. Immediately after, he turned and left without any lingering feelings. Seer kept watching his back until his figure disappeared from her sight. Seer! Come help! Someone inside the pub suddenly called. Coming! After answering the call, Seer immediately smiled and bounced back inside the pub. It was evident that this girl was in a very good mood. Chapter 74, Defeat. The joyous time always passes quickly. After a lively celebration feast, Loki Familia's activities transitioned to the right track. Everyone had their own tasks to take care of. Finn, Riveria, and Gareth, the top executives and higher UPS of the Familia, needed to prepare for the next expedition. The rest of the Familia members, following the three top executives' orders, began investing the money earned from the expedition in various areas. Tiona, Tioni, and several others had to go for weapon maintenance. Bet, due to his absence yesterday, was caught and scolded by the three top executives. Today, as he intended to go to the dungeon again, he got caught once more and was ordered to handle miscellaneous tasks. Even Lefiya was not idle. With a few elves, she helped Riveria gather information, seemingly intent on finding out about the new species of monsters. In such a situation, Riesel and Ace unexpectedly found themselves with some free time. After all, both of them wielded Durandal weapons. While they still required maintenance, they weren't as worn out as the weapons of other members. Furthermore, with Bet handling miscellaneous tasks, the two didn't have anything to do. As a result, Riesel once again proposed a sparring match with Ace. Naturally, she had no reason to refuse. The young girl knew that he needed to adjust to his power every time he leveled up to avoid any inconsistencies in his body. This time was no different. Riesel had reached level 5 with the expected feelings of imbalance. He urgently needed someone to spar with to adapt to his current power. As was customary, Ace casually agreed. However, the outcome of this sparring match was completely different from the past. Clang! When Ace raised her sword to block the thunder-like strike that came at her, the astonishing power from Riesel's bright silver sword made her groan involuntarily, forcing her to retreat. Riesel's form had turned into a blurry phantom, giving the impression of teleportation with every flicker. Even Ace struggled to catch his incredible speed. Her golden eyes narrowed to pinprick size, while her entire body tensed up, showing no hint of underestimation. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Suddenly, Riesel closed in on Ace, and the sword in his hand transformed into bursts of cold light, thrusting toward her body at a very fast speed. So fast. Too fast. Ace barely managed to react. She relied on her keen senses and exceptional abilities to barely counter Riesel's attacks, wielding her sword to deflect the rain of sword tips coming at her. Fighting with all her might, Ace found herself constantly retreating, unable to stop the relentless attack from Riesel. On the contrary, Riesel not only grew stronger with each clash but also moved with a fluidity that seemed to have no bounds. Whether it was attack speed or movement speed, everything continued to improve, leaving Ace feeling trapped in a storm that only intensified, making each attack more challenging for her. Until finally... Ding! With a loud metallic collision sound, her sword was flicked away. No! Just as Ace exclaimed inwardly in panic, Riesel's silver sword pointed directly at her throat. Her movements came to a complete halt, her expression frozen in place. Silence enveloped the surroundings. Sorry. Realizing he might have gone a bit too far, Riesel quickly withdrew his sword and apologized. Ace remained silent, her hand clenched slightly. She had lost. She had lost to Riesel. Ace. Riesel looked at the now silent Ace with a hint of worry. Are you okay? I'm fine. Ace shook her head, then looked at him complex expression. You became stronger than me. It was an unbelievable turn of events. Riesel had just reached level 5, while Ace had been struggling at this level for over 3 years, maintaining a superior status. However, at this moment, Ace, a seasoned and veteran level 5, lost to Riesel, who had just reached level 5. The impact it brought was greater than she had imagined. It's just a sparring, doesn't mean much, right? Riesel said softly, trying to console Ace. Indeed, it was just a sparring, not a life and death battle. Saying he was stronger than her based on this sparring alone was too hasty. But Ace could sense that he was merely comforting herself. What did sparring or practice prove? What would demonstrate his power then? A life and death battle? Ace had witnessed Riesel's strength in such situations more than once. If she couldn't even win during sparring, how could she beat him in the so-called life and death battle? Thinking about his battles at level 1 against the crocodile dragon and at level 4 against the female-like worm monster, Ace's emotions became even more complex. This complex feeling lingered until the end of their sparring match. Later on, Ace left. She left the training ground and Twilight Manor, disappearing somewhere unknown. Back in his room, Riesel, having put down Hermit, couldn't shake off the complicated look and expression Ace had when leaving. Eventually, he stood up. No, I can't just leave that girl alone. Worried, Riesel left the room to find Reveria. At this moment, Reveria was in Finn's office, discussing the Familia affairs with Finn and Gareth. Wait a sec, you actually defeated Ace in sparring? You've gotten this strong already? Gareth exclaimed in shock upon hearing Riesel's explanation. Reveria and Finn were no better either. Ace was not just anyone. Even before Riesel appeared, various gods considered her the most talented individual in the lower world. Despite her young age, many saw her as the strongest level 5, capable of challenging level 6 with the help of her magic, Ariel, making her comparable to level 6 adventurers. The moniker of the strongest swordswoman wasn't just a mere moniker but a well-deserved reputation. Even within Loki Familia, apart from the 3 level 6 top executives, Ace was the strongest adventurer. The fact that Ace lost to Riesel in a sparring match was indeed surprising for the 3 top executives. It was just a friendly match, and I happened to win by luck. Riesel explained carefully. Unfortunately, the 3 weren't fools and didn't buy it. If it was just luck, Ace wouldn't be so affected by it. Finn said calmly while looking meaningfully at Riesel. You should understand that better than anyone. Riesel instantly fell silent. Did he understand? Of course, he did. Despite his excuse, he had realized through this sparring match that his strength did indeed surpass Ace's. His latent basic abilities were extremely high, and his development ability was stronger than others at his level. All his development abilities belonged to the combat type, amplifying his status. Even though he had just reached level 5, he was no less powerful than anyone at this level. Even though Ace was the strongest level 5, it didn't matter. Without development abilities to enhance her power and only possessing the swordsman development ability, which was lower ranked than Riesel's, she couldn't compete with him at all. If she had an advantage in other aspects, like superior swordsmanship, it would be a different story. Unfortunately, Riesel had mastered her swordsmanship, leaving her without an edge. Considering his accumulated latent basic abilities, development abilities, and the variety of magic at his disposal, Ace couldn't match up. Knowing this, Riesel couldn't help but feel somewhat responsible. As she saw the conflicted expression on Riesel's face, Reveria spoke up. You don't have to blame yourself. Reveria said gently, trying to comfort him. It's not your fault. Yet. Gareth added. If you were intentionally trying to bring Ace down, that would be a different story. But you were just doing what you normally do and sparring like you usually do, where's the fault in that? Ace won't blame you for sure and likely blaming herself. Finn also chimed. She's always been eager to go above and beyond, constantly pursuing power. Besides getting stronger, there's almost nothing else in her eyes. You winning against her today might make her feel she's still weak, and getting surpassed quickly is also a big blow to her. In short, she's dissatisfied with herself. At Finn's explanation, Riesel fell into silence. His perspective was blunt, hitting the core of the matter. Riesel knew Ace was dissatisfied with her own growth and desired more power. The three top executives were also well aware of this. It could be said that she had this dissatisfaction and tendency from the start, and the outcome of her sparring with him was just the spark that ignited the fuse. So, what should we do now? We can't just sit idly, can we? Riesel asked while looking at the three top executives. Of course. Reveria furrowed her brows and made a worried expression. Knowing her temperament, she's probably already delved into the dungeon, likely planning to do something dangerous. Ace's current condition was more worrisome than Bet's yesterday. Bet, at least, should know some limits. Ace, on the other hand, was different. If that girl were to lose control, she might throw caution to the wind and recklessly slaughter monsters without stopping. Looks like we can't just stand by, after all. Finn pondered for a moment. I'll send someone to look for her. I'm going as well. Riesel declared without hesitation. I'll join. Reveria turned to Finn. Sorry, I'm just a bit worried about that child. No problem, go ahead. Finn agreed with a nod. We're not in a rush anyway. Let's find Ace first and then decide. Everyone nodded in agreement and began to move. Chapter 75, Searching Ace. Babel, Plaza. At this moment, adventurers were pouring into the dungeon one after another, exploring in fervor. When Riesel and Reveria, along with some members of Loki Familia, appeared at the scene, they were immediately spotted by quite a few people. However, they soon dispersed, approaching adventurers who had visibly spent more time around or the guild personnel stationed inside Babel, seeking information. 10 minutes later, they regrouped in front of Babel, exchanging gathered intelligence. No surprises, Ace did indeed enter the dungeon. Reveria said while sighing. The guild personnel inside Babel claimed to have seen Ace fully armed. If that's the case, she must have entered the dungeon. I confirmed as well, someone saw Ace entering the dungeon. Riesel looked at Reveria. Although some time has passed, catching up with her now is not impossible. You're right. Reveria sighed. But it doesn't mean we will. It was common knowledge that with Ace's speed, after these few hours, she must have descended to a certain floor. In various aspects, she resembled Riesel. Riesel excelled in Dex and AGI, and judging by Ace's status, her main specialty was also Dex and AGI, where she achieved A rank in both. With her swift speed, delving into the dungeon for a few hours was enough for her to reach below the 10th floor. Even if she focused on moving quickly, given her speed, it wouldn't be impossible for her to reach the lower floors below the 20th floor. Riesel might have a chance to catch up, but for Reveria and the rest, it was quite difficult. Reveria, being level 6, excelled in mag, but basic abilities like STR and Dex and AGI were not her strong suit. At this moment, her mag had reached S rank, but her AGI was only at C rank. Even with latent basic abilities from the previous level factored in, her speed still couldn't match Riesel and Ace. The rest of the group was even less capable. The highest level among those brought by Reveria was only level 4, making it impossible for them to catch up with Ace. All right, Riesel, you go first and find Ace, while we'll catch up later. Reveria placed her hopes on him. Is that okay with you? Riesel shook his head. No problem. He was already level 5 now, and even alone, he was more than capable of delving into the deeper floors. Starting from the 37th floor, the deeper floors could be easily handled by him. Unless he encountered an irregular, he wouldn't face any life-threatening situations. But even if he ran into an irregular, he would undoubtedly face it head-on after having plenty of experience. No time to waste, I'll set off first. With that, Riesel's figure flashed, turning into a gust of wind, rushing into Babel. The strong wind he stirred up along the way drew exclamations from onlookers, leaving some irritable adventurers cursing. Reveria watched him leave, then turned to the rest of the searching group. 2 of you stay here and guard. The rest, follow me inside. Yes. The searching group members responded one after another. After a while, Reveria, along with several members of Loki Familia, entered the dungeon. The dungeon today seemed unusually quiet. Although there were plenty of adventurers, causing quite a commotion, as Riesel dashed through, he didn't encounter many monsters. The roars that were usually faintly heard upon entering the dungeon were also absent today, giving the labyrinth an eerie sense of tranquility. Some adventurers found this situation strange and even frustrating. Yo, What's up with the dungeon today? Haven't spotted a single monster, what gives? Did someone already wipe them all out or something? But that doesn't make sense. Adventurers discussed one after another, and Riesel, who happened to overhear everything, furrowed his brow. Could it be Ace? That girl. Maybe she's been taking out all the monsters since entering the first floor and making her way down. With her strength and speed, if she really did that, the upper floor monsters would have been wiped out in no time. It wouldn't have been surprising if the dungeon couldn't spawn new ones fast enough. If this was her doing, it proved that she was indeed getting a bit impatient. After all, no matter how many upper floor monsters she slaughtered, Ace, who was already at level 5, wouldn't have gained a bit of Excelia. In the past, she wouldn't indiscriminately slaughter monsters in the dungeon like this. She would quickly dive down and explore after reaching a certain floor. It was an unwritten rule that high-level adventurers should avoid making moves on upper-floor monsters to ensure enough monsters for lower-level adventurers to fight later. Even Riesel rarely engaged upper-floor monsters after reaching level 2, and Ace, needless to say, wouldn't make moves on upper-floor monsters unless absolutely necessary. Now, she was disregarding even this unwritten rule, indicating that her mentality was indeed becoming a problem. Riesel remained silent, but his speed increased significantly. He rushed through the dungeon, frightening many adventurers who witnessed the scene. All they could see was a gust of wind, a shadow passing at an astonishing speed. They couldn't confirm the identity of the shadow and were left with expressions as if they had seen a ghost. Riesel paid no attention to them, focusing on speed and advancing deeper into the dungeon, startling many witnesses. In order to boost his speed, Riesel even chanted the protection magic, Remuer, significantly increasing his AGI. If it weren't for the side effect of aerial, he would have used it to travel faster. This showed that he was also feeling a sense of urgency. In this way, Riesel continued deeper, quickly crossing the upper floors from the 1st to the 12th, and entering the middle floors starting from the 13th. From this floor onward, the frequency of monster appearances was much higher. Even if they were defeated, the dungeon quickly spawned new ones. Hence, after entering the 13th floor, Riesel finally saw scattered monsters. Roar. A black creature, resembling a wolf or a dog, spewing flames from its mouth, roared at Riesel as he entered this floor. Scram! Without looking back, he shot the creature a glare, and it flinched before running away. He continued downward, maintaining his speed without any reduction. 10 minutes later, he reached the 14th floor. 17 minutes later, he reached the 15th floor. 30 minutes later, he reached the 16th floor. In less than an hour, Riesel entered the 17th floor, smoothly reaching its end and entering a large underground area. This area was a rectangular prism with a large circular entrance, at least 200 meters long. The width was about 100 meters, and although the height from the ground to the ceiling was less than 20 meters, it was higher than other places. The entire structure was made of rough rocks, except for the unique construction of the left wall. The surface of the wall was extremely smooth, like a mirror without seams, extending from the entrance of the hall to the deepest end, covering the entire wall. The Big Wall of Grief. This was the last obstacle on the 17th floor, known as the dungeon's wall that gave birth to a particular monster. In this peculiar Big Wall of Grief, only a specific monster was born. This was the master of this area. Up to this floor, among the 17 floors, it was the most powerful and fearsome existence. The 17th floor's floor boss, Goliath. The Big Wall of Grief was the wall that gave birth to Goliath. Unless Goliath was defeated and it was not time for it to be reborn, anyone entering this area would inevitably face the crazy attacks of the dungeon's first floor boss. Any attack from giant monsters like Goliath, who stood at least 7 meters tall, would give headaches to any adventurer not yet a first-class adventurer. Riesel was not unfamiliar with this place. Originally, when reaching the limit of level 3, to achieve a great exploit, he came here alone, fighting Goliath one-on-one. In that battle, even he faced the brink of death several times but brushed against it. Goliath was a level 4 monster, a floor boss with a massive body. At that time, when Riesel was only level 3, fighting such a massive monster had been extremely disadvantageous. Even with all his basic abilities at SSS and an overpowered enchant magic like Aerial, it was an extremely difficult battle. If Riesel hadn't been so excited and reckless in that battle, whether he could defeat Goliath or not would have been uncertain. It had been precisely because of this challenging battle that he could achieve a great exploit and advance to level 4. Of course, the current him, facing Goliath again, could easily crush it. However, what he could do, others could naturally do as well. For example, a swordswoman who was level 5 like him. Riesel stood before a pile of ashes, looking at the untouched magic stone on top, remaining silent for quite some time. After a while, he abandoned the enormous magic stone and rushed onto the 18th floor. Meanwhile, a golden-haired swordswoman entered the 19th floor from the entrance of the 18th floor. Not enough. The golden-haired swordswoman murmured softly, watching the path ahead. I must become stronger. Chapter 76, A Race Against Time. The 18th floor of the dungeon was a special place. Similar to the 50th floor, it served as a safe zone where no monsters spawned, marking it as the first secure floor in the dungeon. However, in contrast to the grey wilderness atmosphere of the 50th floor, the 18th floor was known as the Under Resort. It stood as a rare spectacle in the dungeon, akin to the large tree labyrinth and water city. The floor showcased an endless, natural grassland, vast lakes, and surrounding forests. A small island nestled in the center of a large lake, and amid the distant grassland, a towering tree stood. The hollow of the tree led to the entrance of the 19th floor, the large tree labyrinth. It was a sight that could only be witnessed in this paradise. Of course, the most talked about characteristic here was the abundant blue crystals. On the 18th floor, blue crystals grew everywhere, some large, some small, some towering like pillars, and others scattered like bushes along the paths. Even the ceiling of the entire floor was covered in uneven crystals. These crystals emitted a radiant glow, with the brightness changing over time, mimicking a day and night cycle. Legend said that there was a simple town on the island in the center of the lake, established by adventurers as a way station and resting place during their explorations. As a result, people lived on the 18th floor, with inns, shops, and the like. However, the charges were absurd. Anyone attempting to sell their backpack full of loot there would face extreme haggling, resulting in minimal profits. Thanks to this, the town on the 18th floor had gained infamy as a black market in the industry. Most merchants there were also rough and impolite scoundrels. With just one wrong move, adventurers could end up getting ripped off, leaving many itching with frustration. But Riesel wasn't interested in this town at all, and it didn't even cross his mind right now. Ace must be heading down. Given Ace's current temper, there was no way she would linger in a town like this. Therefore, Riesel was not keen to stop on this floor and headed straight for the giant tree in the center of the grassland, entering the 19th floor through the tree's hollow. Starting from this floor, monsters weren't killed indiscriminately anymore. The lower one went in the dungeon, the wider the terrain became. From the 19th floor onward, the large tree labyrinth had a large area. There wasn't just one road leading to the entrance of the 20th floor, trying to indiscriminately kill all monsters here was not only difficult but also a waste of time. Ace evidently understood this point. She finally stopped her reckless slaughter, causing the number of monsters to sharply increase from the 19th floor onward, posing a hindrance to Riesel on his journey. With the terrain expanding and the area widening, finding someone here would undoubtedly be challenging. It was possible that Ace might be staying in some corner of this floor, engaged in combat with some monsters. If Riesel were to abandon the search on this floor and continue downward, there was a bigger chance he would pass by Ace. With her personality, it was inevitable that she'd keep pushing forward at a time like this. Riesel thought without much hesitation, completely convinced of it. He could probably guess what Ace intended to do on this reckless journey. The night before last, coming out of Loki's divine room, Ace, unsatisfied and gloomy about her growth, had already revealed her plan for the next step. She planned to level up. Ace was readying herself to step into the next level. This was her original plan, only pushed forward due to setbacks in her sparring match with Riesel. With this in mind, her destination became quite clear. To achieve the exploits needed for leveling up, she requires a powerful opponent. This opponent must be stronger than Ace at her current level. Furthermore, her current level was the pinnacle of level 5, stronger than that would only be monsters classified as level 6. Monsters of this level, even if they delved into the 50th floor, wouldn't encounter any. Even on the 51st floor, there was only one monster that fit the criteria, which was Cadmus. Heading to the 51st floor would take too much time. In the expedition, at least 5 or 6 days were needed, but going alone would take even more time, not less. Ace definitely couldn't wait that long. Given this, there were only two types of opponents she could choose. Either a strengthened or rare species with generally higher powers compared to monsters on the same floor. Or floor boss. On the 27th floor, there was a level 5 floor boss, Amphisbena. This massive dragon species monster, posing a threat to other level 5 adventurers, proved only slightly challenging for Ace, who could use aerial to ignore one level. It obviously did not meet her requirements, and she certainly would not have chosen to challenge it to fulfill the needed exploits. In this case, the opponent she selected was a floor boss one level stronger than Amphisbena. 37th floor's floor boss, Tudius. This level 6 floor boss was the powerful opponent Ace yearned for. Therefore, her destination was only one. 37th floor. When Riesel pondered up to this point, he found himself in a dilemma. It was not without reason, his time left in this world was running out. The day he returned from the expedition, it had already been 97 days in this world, leaving only the last 3 days to stay. The next day, which was yesterday, he spent the entire day dealing with Familia affairs and later attended a celebration feast at the hostess of fertility. And today was the second day. In other words, it was almost 2 days since the return from the expedition. Once tomorrow passes, the day after tomorrow around this time, Riesel will leave this world and return to the main world. It was an irreversible process. The time limit for dimensional travel was a day in the main world, clearly stated in the Dimensional Magic Cube's instructions. When the time was up, his consciousness in this world would dissolve on its own and be brought back to the main world by the Dimensional Magic Cube. In other words, in about a day, if he couldn't find Ace, he might not even have the chance to say goodbye to everyone and would directly return to the main world. As he thought to this point, in his mind, the face of the golden-haired girl with a lack of emotional expression suddenly appeared. Tempest. Whoosh. With a whispered chant, a storm swept around Riesel's body. Yes. He couldn't afford to worry too much now. He just wanted to quickly find Ace to prevent anything unexpected from happening to the girl who took care of him. As for the side effect from Ariel, it no longer mattered to him. Roar. Roar. The nearby monsters naturally sensed the commotion caused by Ariel and started howling, rushing toward Riesel's direction. These monsters with bear-like and massive bodies were known as bugbears, a large species of monster appearing from the 19th floor onwards. Their classification level was level 2, making them quite a powerful foe for adventurers of the same level. Unfortunately, they picked the wrong target. Puchi, Puchi, Puchi. When the storm passed, several bugbears rushing toward Riesel were cut into countless pieces, as if disassembled. The chunks of meat scattered into ashes, leaving only magic stones on the ground. Riesel ignored all of these, speeding toward the 20th floor's entrance. Dungeon, 37th floor. This was a floor known as the White Palace. Within this floor, all the walls were of a murky white color, and the entire floor resembled a castle, consisting of as many as 5 concentric walls. The staircase leading to the 38th floor was located at the center of the floor. To proceed to the 38th floor, one must head to the central area of this floor. To reach the central area of this floor, one must navigate through open passages between the concentric walls and climb up and down several uneven surfaces. Unfortunately, the scope of this floor was extremely vast, almost comparable to a city. The terrain formed a huge maze structure. If one were to run around randomly in such a place, getting lost would be easy, and there was even a chance of being trapped forever, never finding a way out. To reach this floor, it generally took about 2 to 3 days. However, with Ariel's acceleration, Riesel managed to arrive at this floor in about a day. Ha! Ha! Every part of his body ached, almost causing him to stumble and fall to the ground. Ignoring the ache in his body, Riesel gritted his teeth and continued to move forward. The ceiling overhead seemed so high that it was almost invisible, giving a sense of boundlessness. The area was filled with dim darkness, with only intermittent luminescence on the murky white walls lighting the way enough to proceed. Riesel pushed his aching body to its limit as he hurried toward the massive cavern in his memory. *roar. Yet, even before he could successfully arrive, he heard it. It was a roar that shook the entire floor, a vicious howl reverberating through the entire dungeon walls and floors. Riesel's heart tightened as he pushed his somewhat exhausted body to complete the final stretch, bursting into the massive cavern. In the next second, he finally saw it. He saw the entrance to the cavern, with the golden-haired girl standing there, her back facing him, pulling out a sword and standing against the wind. Ace! Riesel subconsciously yelled out. However, his voice was mercilessly drowned out by a roar so enormous it was astounding. *roar. The roar of an enormous monster echoed through the space. In front of the golden-haired girl, a monster gradually emerged from the soil, coming into Riesel's view. Chapter 77, Complex and Chaotic Emotion. Crack. The ground was cracking. In the enormous cavern, the earth shattered like glass, creating sudden cracks that raced in all directions. Before long, the cracks swelled, soil rolled all around, rocks shattered, and dust filled the air. Boom! A massive pitch-black monster burst through the ground, shaking off rocks and sand clinging to its massive body. It let the debris fall as it made the cavern violently tremble. Roar. Asterisk. A roar echoed from the massive monster emerging from the earth. It sounded like a cry and an angry howl combined, turning into shockwaves that rolled in all directions. The monster resembled a gigantic skeleton, entirely black, with sharp spikes protruding from every corner of its bones. These spikes glowed with an eerie and dangerous sharpness, instilling fear in anyone who saw it. Its lower half remained buried underground, but just the bone section above the pelvis reached nearly 10 meters in height. The head sprouted 2 horns resembling a demon, and deep within the massive eye sockets flickered strange and dangerous red flames, truly horrifying. At the center of this massive monster, within the chest cavity, a magic stone much larger than usual was embedded like a heart, protected by thick chest and rib bones. This was the floor boss of the 37th floor, Udius. Without any surprises, Ace, standing in the middle of the cavern with her back to the floor entrance, immediately caught the attention of this floor boss. Boom! Accompanied by a rumbling sound, the massive skeleton monster swept its massive bone arm, sending Ace flying. Witnessing this scene, Riesel's heart, tightly strung, snapped. Without hesitation, he extended his hand toward one of the 2 swords hanging at his waist. Facing the 37th floor's floor boss, a level 6 massive-sized monster, Riesel almost instinctively reached for Fool under Hermit, ready to use this first-class equipment ranked in the top 3 in Orario. But before he could draw his sword, a voice stopped him. Don't! The scream from Ace froze Riesel's movements. Shortly afterward, he saw Ace, thrown by Udius's blow, standing unsteadily from beneath the cracked wall. Don't do anything! Ace stared intently at him as she spoke. In her transparent golden eyes, rare and intense emotions appeared. It was a determination. It was a resolve. With Ace looking at him with such eyes, Riesel couldn't help but hold his hand reaching for Fool. Tempest. Shortly after, Ace loudly chanted her exclusive magic and activated the overpowered wind enchant type magic, enveloping her body in chaotic gusts. With help from Ariel, she finally began to sprint. Roar. Asterisk. The massive skeleton monster roared once again, swinging its bone arm, stirring up gusts of wind and sand, forcefully sweeping toward her. Ace seemed to be attempting to evade, leaping slightly with the help of the wind. However, just as she was about to leap, her body froze mysteriously. This freeze was undoubtedly deadly. Boom! The massive bone arm brutally struck Ace, sending her flying once again, crashing into the wall at the other end of the cavern, shattering it to pieces. Ace! Riesel couldn't help but shout in panic. Ace didn't respond, she just stubbornly got up again, charging at Udius once more. Udius continued to swing its giant bone arm, carrying frightening force and emitting thunderous roars and vibrations throughout the massive cavern, showcasing the immense power typical of floor bosses. From this astonishing display of power and noise, it was clear that this floor boss, like the others, possessed terrifying strength comparable to the giant species. Under such power, the cavern quickly suffered devastation. The ground became pockmarked, cracks and holes marring the walls all around. Stones and debris flew like bullets, even forcing Riesel to dodge several times. Fortunately, Udius's strength, while powerful, also had a common weakness shared by every giant species: slower movements. Though still threatening, with Ace's speed, she shouldn't be easily hit. However, reality proved otherwise. Amidst Udius's indiscriminate destruction, Ace, despite her efforts to evade, was repeatedly hit somewhat easily. Like a cannonball, she was either slammed into the wall or crashed onto the ground, raising dust and sending stones flying, looking extremely miserable. After being hit several times, even with Ariel's wind protection, she began to accumulate injuries. How did this happen? Riesel was genuinely stunned. Why does Ace keep getting hit often? With her speed, dodging Udius's attacks should be a piece of cake. This confusion lingered until he noticed the unnatural stiffness in her movements, finally uncovering the answer. Could it be that Ace is now just like me, enduring aches and soreness due to the side effects of aerial? Upon getting this answer, Riesel finally understood why, despite using aerial himself, he couldn't catch up to Ace. It seemed that, like him, she was also using aerial without stopping to hasten her journey. This seemed like a rather foolish course of action. After all, her goal was the floor boss of the 37th floor, a level 6 Udius. Facing such a monster, logically, one should avoid unnecessary battles before reaching the 37th floor, saving stamina and preserving mind to be in the best possible condition for the battle. Ace, however, used aerial in advance for the sake of speed. Not only did it consume most of her mind, but her body also suffered aerial's side effects. Facing a floor boss with a higher level in this kind of state was practically suicide. Yet, Riesel could understand, it must have been a helpless action. To reach the 37th floor, considering the possible obstacles along the way, not to mention the time required, it would take at least 2 or 3 days. Ace entered the dungeon with minimal supplies, lacking provisions and food. Rushing through a 2 to 3 day journey in the dungeon without proper supplies would leave her with no strength or stamina to fight Udius upon reaching the 37th floor. Instead of ending up in a weakened state during the battle, she preferred enduring aerial's side effects and the loss of mind. At least this way, she would have the strength to fight. Combined with the urgency she felt, Ace ultimately decided to use aerial to speed up her journey, preventing Riesel from catching up with her. She successfully arrived at the 37th floor before him, but the cost was high. As expected, in the following battle with Udius, Ace was easily overwhelmed. Boom! Udius's massive bone arm hit Ace once again, sending her flying and crashing onto the ground, rolling a considerable distance before coming to a stop. Swing! Riesel didn't intend to watch any longer and quickly unsheathed Fool. Don't come! Ace's pain scream stopped him as she forced herself to unsteadily get back on her feet. This time, Riesel had no intention of complying with her demands. However, Ace's next word caused his expression to stiffen, and the step he was about to take froze. Please! Her whisper created more turmoil in him than he had imagined. Not for anything else, but because Ace Wallenstein, in a vulnerability he had never heard nor seen before, was pleading to him. Her plea made his steps, which he could take at any time, impossible to move forward. You're gonna die! Riesel could only take a deep breath and yelled. No! Ace stood up, pointing her sword toward the massive skeleton monster ahead, and took a deep breath. I will win! Her fragile tone was replaced by a resolute and determined one. Riesel really wanted to argue. If she were in her optimal condition, he wouldn't doubt her winning. He recalled in the original work that she indeed could take down Udius alone, achieving a great exploit and leveling up to level 6 with Ariel's help. Ace's true power, with such overpowered magic, was more than a match for level 6. For her, Udius was undoubtedly a difficult opponent, but not an unbeatable one. In other words, if she was at her best, able to unleash 100% of her power, Riesel would trust her, trust this girl, and let her confidently take on the challenge. However, the problem was that she wasn't in her best condition now. To speed up her journey, she had been using aerial non-stop, resulting in both body and mind fatigue. In this condition, expecting her to showcase 100% of her power was wishful thinking, even 70 to 80% was highly unlikely. In this situation, what did she have to fight Udius? How could she win? Riesel really wanted to counter Ace like that. Unfortunately, just as the words reached the tip of his tongue, he found himself unable to say them. Ace's gaze crossed the distance between them, landing on his eyes. In those transparent golden eyes, there was still determination and resolve, but now, there was a lot more pleading. As a result, Riesel fell silent and couldn't advance any further. His emotions, rarely seen, became extremely complex and chaotic. Chapter 78, The Battle of Ace. Considering it rationally, there was no doubt the most crucial thing for Riesel to do at this moment was to go all out against Udius. Even though Udius was a floor boss classified as level 6, his strength now had surpassed even Ace's, which meant he could take on Udius entirely on his own. In the original work, Ace also managed to defeat Udius on her own in a perilous battle. Since Riesel was now stronger than her, there was no reason for him to fear the floor boss of the 37th floor. At the very least, he could have retreated with her, avoiding this floor boss very easily. He surely had the confidence for that. However, that was just a rational perspective. If looked at from an emotional standpoint, it was a different story. If Riesel didn't know anything, didn't know Ace's desires, didn't know why the girl craved such strong power in her heart, he could have just jumped into action without thinking too much. Unfortunately, he knew the original work, knew what wishes and sorrows resided in Ace Wallenstein's heart. This made it impossible for him to decisively join or interfere in her fight. Of course, monsters like Odious didn't consider and care about human emotions. *roar. Odious let out a roar, slamming its fist into the ground without mercy. Boom! Fortunately, this punch couldn't reach Ace. At this moment, she had already distanced herself from Odious. Unless it pulled its lower body out of the ground to pursue her, at this distance, its fist couldn't touch her at all. Yet, seeing Odysseus's fist smash into the ground, not only Ace but Riesel's expression also changed slightly. Bang! As the ground shattered, sharp spikes, resembling both rocks or bone spikes, emerged. These spikes were pitch black, matching Odysseus's body color. They shot up from the underground, piercing toward Ace's direction. Here it comes! Seeing this scene, both Riesel and Ace felt a momentary tension. Anyone who had faced Odious before or paid attention to information about it would know that this floor boss had two special abilities. Some might wonder why this massive floor boss didn't pull its lower body out of the ground and remained in that position. What they didn't know was that Odious actually had no lower body. It was like a tree with roots firmly planted underground. A massive tree with its upper body visible to others, capable of displaying incredible strength, while its lower body consisted of numerous bone components branching out from the pelvic area. The spikes that looked like rock or bone spikes were, in fact, parts of Odysseus's body. The entire area Ace was in right now was, in essence, Odysseus's lower body spread across the vast underground cavern. As long as it was willing, it could make its parts buried underground break through the surface, attacking the entire cavern it was in. It could even block the entrance, not letting anyone escape from this place. This was one of Odysseus's special abilities, being able to summon upturned spikes to attack its enemies. It could also summon them to use as shields against enemy attacks, truly a dual-purpose weapon. Thanks to this ability, Odious could unleash area attacks, a rarity among the floor bosses. Even facing a group of dozens of adventurers with high levels, it remained unfazed. Not only that, another one of Odysseus's abilities significantly reduced the numerical advantage before it. *roar. The massive skeleton monster roared, causing the ground all around to continuously crack and shatter. However, this time, what emerged from the ground were not bone spikes but small skeleton monsters. They were like shrunken versions of Odious, human-sized but entirely white skeletal beings known as Spartoi. Spartoi were monsters that roamed the 37th floor, classified as level 4. Yet another ability of Odious precisely allowed it to summon countless Spartoi to fight as soldiers for itself. As a result, at this moment, whether it was spikes or soldiers, all of them under Odysseus's roaring command charged toward Ace. Ugh! Ace tried to dodge, attempting to create distance from the monsters, but the pain coursing through her head to toe once again tormented her body, making her speed impossible to unleash. Just as she was about to be hit by the violently approaching spikes, Riesel's voice echoed. Follow blindly the sun in the sky, so that all will flee from thee. Blossom, armor of laurel. Remure. Accompanied by the chanting of magic, a deep green light membrane appeared, enveloping Ace's body. Her speed suddenly skyrocketed, swiftly dodging the incoming spikes. Before she could fully react, Riesel's voice rang out again. Healing droplets, tears of light, eternal sanctuary. This was a completely new chant, and it was only recently that Ace heard it. Unlike before, when she heard Hermod chant this magic with a solemn and devout voice, this time she heard a man's voice. Compose a medicinal hymn 365. The melody of the healer's almanac saves all things. Come, destruction of evil. The burial of wounds, interment of disease. Curses be gone in the light of vitality. In the name of all that is holy, I heal you. Dia Fratel. The top-class healing magic was activated, and pure white particles of light descended from the sky, swirling out from a white magic circle, and landing on Ace's body. At this moment, Ace could clearly feel the pain and soreness coursing through her entire body rapidly easing. She subconsciously turned her head and looked toward the entrance of the cavern. There, Riesel stepped on a pure white magic circle, gazing at her. Through his eyes, she understood what he wanted to convey. At least let me handle this bit of support. Riesel chose not to rush out anymore but to support Ace in his own way from the back. Feeling her body gradually recovering, injuries improving, and even the soreness under her skin easing, she tightened her grip on her sword. "Thank you, Riesel," Ace whispered and quickly raised her head, her eyes revealing a powerful resolve. Without hesitation, she charged forward. Boom, 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 boom. Numerous Spartoi rushing toward Ace shuddered, collectively exploding. With the wind enveloping her body, she charged into the midst of the monster horde, like a storm sweeping through. Swish, 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 swish. Her sword slashed dozens of times in an instant, exploding every Spartoi in her path. *ruaaaar. Asterisk. Seemingly angered by this, Udius immediately summoned more spikes, shooting toward Ace without stopping. She didn't dare to be careless, her footsteps and figure dodged in rapid succession, avoiding Udius's long-range attacks with astonishing speed and agility. Whoosh! Seeing Ace getting closer, flames flickered in Udius's eye sockets. Its thick bone arm, carrying a strong gust of wind, quickly swung toward her without mercy. Just as Ace was about to dodge, she suddenly realized there was no escape. The spikes shot out by Udius, varying in length and width, were essentially a part of its body and wouldn't disappear. Because Udius had just shot out numerous spikes, even if they didn't hit her, they would all land on the ground, forming a mountain of spikes. Some were as small as pointed needles, standing upright, while others were as large as stone pillars, occupying a considerable space in the cavern. Although Ace successfully dodged the shooting spikes, those on the ground deprived her of some of her foothold. In other words, her movement space was restricted. Under the pressure of countless spikes, she had little room to dodge, completely unable to avoid the oncoming arm attack from Udius. Bang, 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 bang. Udius's massive arm, thick and robust, laced with a forceful gust, swept away anything in its path indiscriminately. Just before reaching Ace, it preemptively swung, shattering spikes, breaking the earth's surface, and thundering toward her at great speed. The power of this attack surpassed anything Udius had unleashed before. Ace, relying on instinct and experience, realized she couldn't withstand this kind of attack. Even with Ariel's protection and Remuer's defense, taking a direct hit would leave her undying but severely wounded. Tempest. In the face of crisis, Ace increased the output of Ariel. Whoosh! A massive gust of wind enveloped her body, and with a step on her foot, she soared into the air. Boom! Udius's powerful arm attack missed, crashing into the ground, and sending a spray of soil and stones into the air. Ace, riding the wind, remained suspended in midair and quickly flew toward Udius. Ariel's enhancement was almost comprehensive, assisting in every aspect except long-range attacks. It not only enhanced attack power and protected the user's body but also increased speed, enhanced weapons, and provided short-range flying ability. Ace took advantage of Ariel's features, whipping up a frenzy of wind as she charged toward Udius with powerful momentum. *roaar. Asterisk. The flames in Udius's eye sockets burned more fiercely as both of its bony arms rose to meet Ace. Rumble. In the vast cavern, vibrations and tremors incessantly shook the surroundings. With only one spectator, Ace engaged in a true life and death battle against her chosen powerful opponent. Chapter 79, Important Lesson and Self-Reflection. A colossal epic showdown between a human and monsters unfolded for over an hour. In this span, the fierce battle reduced the vast cavern to bits and pieces, almost turning it into a ruin. A mountain of bone spikes spread all over the wreckage, with the remnants of Spartoi scattered in every corner, mingling with the debris, resembling a graveyard unearthed. Riesel stood at the entrance of the cavern throughout, observing the carnage, never intervening from start to finish. No choice. Once he interfered in this fight, he could potentially snatch away Ace's Excelia, jeopardizing the accumulation needed for her exploit. As a result, aside from the first two support magic, he didn't lift a finger, quietly watching the battle unfold. He witnessed Ace being sent flying numerous times. He also saw Ace staggering to her feet repeatedly, shouting as she charged at the massive floor boss. Udius summoned spikes and its skeleton soldiers repeatedly, encircling Ace. Even when she charged and closed in, it howled and slammed its colossal arm down, repeatedly pushing her to the brink. It could be said that without Riesel's 2 magic as her support, Ace would likely be incapable of continuing the fight. Fortunately, his 2 magic effects were extraordinary. Remuer could enhance end AGI, its power depending on Riesel's mag. Now that he was at level 5, this magic's enhancement and duration were quite powerful, providing significant aid to Ace. Diaphragm was a top-class healing magic in this world, not only healing wounds but also restoring stamina, expelling poison, dispelling curses, group healing, and even having its effects sustained. Thanks to this magic, Ace's body maintained the healing effects, repeatedly healing her injuries and stamina. To ensure these magic effects lasted as long as possible in her body, Riesel poured his entire mind into them when chanted them, maximizing their effects and prolonging their duration. With these two magic, Ace could stand up, charge, swing her sword, and fight again and again, displaying perseverance and resolve bordering on extraordinary. Of course, when Riesel thought this way, he didn't know that Ace had seen his performance during his past battles in a similar light. Every time she got sent flying, crashing to the ground, almost unable to stand due to pain and suffocation, the first image in her mind was Riesel. For instance, at level 1, he got rammed by a level 2 crocodile dragon, then thrown, shattering pillars and rocks countless times. Despite all that, he never gave up. Instead, he went all out, chanting magic and swinging his sword non-stop until he finally sent the monster's massive body flying. By level 4, despite being repeatedly sent flying by the massive female-like worm monster with its flat-shaped arms, he relentlessly charged toward it, slashing countless times without giving up. Lastly, the last image that surfaced in her mind was when he advanced at an astonishing speed to stand before her, placing his sword at her throat. These images only strengthened her resolve, backing her up as she stood up and charged at Udius again and again, just like Riesel, whom she unknowingly considered a hero. If Riesel learned swordsmanship, magic, and the style of combat from Ace, then Ace learned perseverance and resolve from Riesel. Maybe she hadn't even noticed it herself, but from him, she saw so many dazzling things and started to unconsciously yearn for and admire them. To others, it seemed like Riesel and Ace were alike in many aspects. Ace felt the same way as she always kept thinking. I want to run forward, just like him. I want to keep moving forward, just like him. It was an obsession. An endless future. It was also a form of redemption. Realizing all of this, Ace's transparent golden eyes reflected Riesel's figure running ahead. She suddenly felt the urge to chase after him, desperately picking up her pace. Tempest. A whirlwind, almost like a storm, wrapped around her entire body. Tempest. Her sword-wielding hand exerted constant pressure, causing the wind entwined around her to surge upward. At this moment, Ace, clad in the hurricane, wielding the sword of the wind, rushed toward Udius at tornado-like speed. Her figure at this moment unmistakably overlapped with the past Riesel. Just like he once did, she unleashed a decisive and final blow, cutting down the almost unbeatable monster. However, unlike Riesel, the wind that Ace was about to unleash was a move with a name that could rival powerful offensive magic, capable of breaking through everything. Calling out the name when using a finishing move can boost your attack power, Ace. The words of a certain shady goddess echoed in Ace's mind, prompting her to shout out loud. Lil Rafaga. Named by her goddess and recognized by her friends, this was a one-hit kill move. Soon, the golden-haired girl transformed into a spiral of powerful wind and lunged forward with lightning speed. Boom! The mountain of bones was pierced. Boom! Many Spartoi got crushed. A swirling gust of powerful wind surged forward, piercing through everything, penetrating through all. *roar. Amidst the dying roar of Udius, the gust of powerful wind soon thundered upon its chest. Instantly, the skeletal structure protecting Udius's chest shattered, exposing an enormous magic stone that radiated a dazzling glow right before Ace's eyes. Her sword didn't lose its momentum and thrust directly into the massive magic stone. Roar! Udius's roar abruptly ceased. Crack! Not long after, the magic stone emitted a cracking sound. Fissures appeared little by little, gradually spreading all over the entire magic stone, and finally exploded. *roar. This time, it wasn't the usual angry roar, but a dying one. Udius howled to the sky, disintegrating and collapsing entirely as it burst open, turning into a cloud of dust. The golden-haired girl drifted in the powerful wind around her. Weakly, she released her sword from her hand and, with the sparkling fragments of the magic stone, descended from midair. Before losing consciousness, she saw him. The figure whom she had just been gazing at and chasing inside her mind flew toward her. Dia Fratel. In a daze, Ace heard a voice. A warm sensation enveloped her entire body, gradually easing the tormenting pain and soreness. She felt comfortable after a long time, except for her head, which felt like mush with a slight throbbing. This was a symptom of mind exhaustion. The effects of healing magic and recovery magic could only act on the body, not the mind. Thus, even if the injuries and pain of the body could be healed, the mind fatigue was a different matter. However, if overcoming a powerful enemy only required paying this small price, it was considered a win. Of course, all credit goes to that man, the man who traveled from afar, who ultimately chose to support her from the back, chanted magic for her, and pushed her forward. Ace opened her eyes and saw him. Kneeling on one knee amidst the cavern's ruins, he cradled her body, his foot planted firmly on a pristine white magic circle, channeling magical energy into a healing miracle. Countless light particles flowed into her body. Ace met his gaze, and he returned it. Their eyes locked, yet silence reigned. She remained wordless, unsure of what to express. Similarly, he simply observed her, offering no intention of speech. "Sorry." Almost instinctively, Ace lowered her head and uttered an apology. Unfortunately, her apology didn't evoke any response from him. After an uncomfortable silence, a sigh finally reached her ears. "I'm the one who should apologize," Riesel said in a low voice. "You haven't done anything wrong." Unconsciously, Ace raised her head and looked at his face. From his eyes, she saw self-blame and reflection. "I messed up," Riesel confessed softly, almost as if talking to himself. "I've always been focused on my own growth, getting stronger, moving forward, trying to live my life differently from my previous one, less numb and more free. But in doing so, I unknowingly left many people who cared for me behind, not only running ahead alone but also neglecting their feelings. This incident truly taught him a deep lesson. Ace took a heavy blow because of him. In his relentless pursuit of testing his new power and adapting to his growth, he sparred with her without considering her feelings. He even went so far as to hold his sword to her throat. Struggling for nearly 10 years, only to be surpassed by a rookie who joined the Familia just over 3 months ago and had a sword pointed at her throat by that same person, it must have been a very unpleasant feeling for Ace. Thinking up to this point, Riesel felt it was the perfect time for some self-reflection. "In the future, I need to pay more attention to the people around me," Riesel whispered, smiling as he gazed at the girl in his arms. "Thank you for helping me realize this important lesson, Ace." In his previous life, he didn't get the family, friendship, or love he wanted. In this life, he couldn't let history repeat itself. Even if he wanted to progress and run forward, he couldn't forget that in this second chance of his life, many people were caring for him and accompanying him on his journey. Realizing this, Riesel felt his restless heart calming down. "Of course. You too." Riesel glanced at Ace's golden eyes, his smile growing more genuine. "Don't forget, you're not alone. People are watching over you by your side." At his words, she just silently stared at his face, observing the genuine smile on it. Her heartbeat unknowingly quickened. Chapter 80, Return. It must be said that it was definitely the right decision for Riesel to learn Dia Frotel from Ermid. Its ability to single-handedly support an entire front line was truly astonishing. Even after Ace fought for over an hour, getting beaten up by Udius, with bruises all over, this magic managed to restore her to her original condition in less than a minute. Such an incredible recovery effect, even Ermid herself might not be able to achieve it. But then again, she was a level 2. Using the same magic in the hands of a level 2 versus a level 5, there was bound to be a difference. Since Riesel's mag was already off the charts, the magic he cast and the one Ermid cast were incomparable. As a result, Ace could quickly bounce back, with only her mind slightly lacking, making her look a bit tired. But that was more than enough. As long as she didn't use magic, she should still be able to fight at full power. "What?" Ace looked at Riesel in surprise. "You're not coming back with me yet?" Riesel nodded. Indeed, he wasn't planning to go back with her, or rather, he didn't have the time to go back with her anymore. In order to catch up with Ace, he spent a whole day and a half, using up the last bit of his time limit in this world. He could feel the dimensional magic cube in his mind slowly starting to turn, seemingly about to open. For this reason, he wouldn't be able to go back with her. However, Ace was clueless about this. "Is there something you need to take care of?" Ace looked at him, seemingly ready to stay with him. However, he shook his head. I do have something to take care of, and it's not a small one. Riesel explained. Since your problem is resolved, I'm preparing to leave. Even the most clueless person would understand the hidden meaning behind his words. Once he leaves, it might not be easy for him to return anytime soon. I've already talked to Loki, and I was planning to tell everyone soon, but it looks like it's too late now. Riesel smiled at her. Just tell Loki for me, say that I've already set off. Ace instantly fell silent. Go. Riesel urged slightly, sensing his limited time. Reveria is on her way to find you. Head back, and you'll meet her soon. Upon hearing that, Ace looked deeply into his eyes, and Riesel looked back with a smile on his face. They stared at each other for a moment before she nodded. I'll be waiting for you at home. Ace said in a rare, gentle tone. Hearing the term home, Riesel's eyes widened slightly, and his smile became even more warm and genuine. Yeah, I'll congratulate you in advance on leveling up. Riesel nodded. This time, Ace was almost certain to level up. By then, she would be level 6, and her strength might surpass his again. But, I'll catch up to you soon. Riesel said fearlessly. Ace watched him quietly for a moment before responding. I'll be waiting for you. All right, go. Ace retreated a few steps, but her gaze remained on his body. Shortly afterward, as if letting go of something, she abruptly turned around and sprinted away. Riesel watched her leave until her back was no longer visible, and only then did the transparent cube in his mind begin to rotate. The time limit has reached 0, dimensional travel is about to conclude, initiating inspection. User detected possessing unique powers of this world and will return with the user after dissolving the consciousness body. User detected carrying unique items of this world and can return with the user by consuming energy. A list of unique items has been compiled, please proceed with your selection. With such messages received by Riesel, a list of items, invisible to others, suddenly appeared in his mind. 1. Loki's God Blood, 70. 2. Fool, 5. 3. Hermit, 2. 4. Battlesuit, 1. 5. Elixir, 1. 6. That was a list of items that Riesel had carried on his body. Some items, like Fool and Hermit, were strapped on his waist. Others, such as the elixir and replacement battlesuit, were stored in the dimensional magic cube storage space for his use as needed. Now, the dimensional magic cube had detected all these items and had created a list for him to choose from. In the dimensional magic cube's instructions, Section 5 stated that when carrying items for dimensional travel, the corresponding energy consumption needed to be based on the value of the items. Following this rule, if he wanted to bring certain items back to the main world, he had to use the energy of the dimensional magic cube. After this energy was consumed, the chosen items would assimilate into the dimensional magic cube, enabling them to travel dimensionally with him. At that point, whether these items returned with him to the main world or accompanied him to other worlds, it was all possible. The selected items could travel dimensionally with him at all times without further energy consumption. As for the powers, it wasn't as complicated. As explained in the dimensional magic cube's instructions, it would return with him after his consciousness body dissolved without consuming any energy. Riesel immediately checked the current energy of the dimensional magic cube. Dimensional energy, 100. The dimensional magic cube could automatically absorb energy from each world. When it had accumulated enough energy for 1 month, it could perform dimensional travel. The cube absorbed 1 unit of energy per day, totaling 30 units in a month. In other words, one-dimensional travel required 30 units of energy, and if there was a need to travel to a personally selected world, it required 10 times the energy, which meant 300 units. Having spent 100 days in the world of Danmachi, the dimensional magic cube had absorbed 100 days' worth of energy, resulting in the current energy of exactly 100 units. Originally, Riesel thought the cube absorbed energy based on the main world's time. However, he realized that the energy absorbed by the cube followed the same ratio as the time he spent in other worlds. This meant that the cube followed his time as the reference point. After all, energy existing in the dimensional world could be said to be all-encompassing. The main world was a world, and this world was also a world, with no significant differences. Finished pondering, Riesel quickly considered the items he needed to take back with him. Firstly, there was Loki's God Blood. This was something Riesel requested from Loki upon knowing he was about to leave. After leaving this world, if he wanted to update his status, he would have to do it independently, as he couldn't rely on her anymore. Therefore, he naturally needed Loki's blood as the essential medium to update his status, ensuring that after leaving this world, his status could still be updated, and he could continue to grow. Hence, he asked Loki for a small bottle of her blood, causing her to grumble and almost ascend to heaven on the spot. With this bottle of blood, Riesel could perform hundreds of status updates. God's blood was undeniably expensive. While the units of energy consumed by other items were only in single digits, even Fool only required 5 units of energy. In contrast, this bottle of God's blood needed a whopping 70 units of energy, truly a rip-off. However, Riesel had no choice. This was the blood of the gods, and regardless of the cost, he must take it with him. For his own growth and future, he had to reluctantly accept this price. Next, Fool and Hermit also had to be taken along. These two were Durandal attribute weapons, the most suitable weapon for him. Especially Fool, not only sharp and handy, but also extremely light. It would allow him to fully utilize the effect of lightweight development ability, further boosting his dex and AGI, so he definitely had to bring them along. The rest didn't matter much. The battle suit was a durable piece of clothing he bought casually in the market, nothing special. If it weren't for the fact that dimensional energy had a specified minimum unit, which was 1 unit, this clothing wouldn't be worth the price. The elixir, on the other hand, was worth its 1 unit cost of energy. After all, it was the most effective potion in this world, capable of quickly healing almost any injury that wasn't fatal or limb severing. Spending 1 unit of energy to take it away was definitely not a loss. Of course, if he hadn't learned the top-class healing magic Dia Frotel, he would probably have taken some back. Unfortunately, he had already learned healing magic more astonishing than the effects of elixir, rendering it somewhat redundant. The remaining items were miscellaneous things, magic stones, various spare potions, and even food and water. There was no need to consume dimensional energy to bring them back to the main world. In summary, a bottle of God's blood and 2 weapons, hey? That's all the stuff I need to take with me. Riesel quickly made his selection. Loki's God blood, 70. Fool, 5. Hermit, 2. 3 items were chosen, totaling 77 units of energy. Dimensional energy, 23. After confirming the remaining energy, Riesel concluded the process. Selection completed, starting execution. Item assimilation successful. Dimensional travel concluded, initiating the return procedure. Riesel's body instantly faded away, appearing as if it had vanished into thin air, leaving no trace behind. His consciousness was absorbed by the dimensional magic cube, which had opened inside his mind, entering the dimensional channel and heading back toward the main world. Soon, the 37th floor of the dungeon became silent, returning to its dormant state.
Thanks for listening.